Chapter 3887. Dark Knight Rose promised the position of vice leader and continued to increase the stakes, trying to attract Lu Ming to join. But Lu Ming was not interested at all. "I'm sorry, but I'm not interested. Also, I think that the Heavenly Palace will not allow a force like the Huiying Alliance to develop." Lu Ming smiled faintly. The Heavenly Palace ruled the primitive universe. How could they let a force that could challenge them appear? If they found out, they would definitely extinguish it. Even without the Heavenly Palace, Lu Ming would not join. If he wanted to build a force, why not do it himself? Why did he have to rely on others? This was not Lu Ming's style. "Mu Yun's meaning is my meaning. I'm not interested either." Ling Yue also rejected. Hearing Lu Ming and Ling Yue's rejection, Dark Knight Rose's gaze turned cold. "You refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Do you really think that you can scare me with a bead? I don't believe that you will really detonate it. Moreover, whether you can detonate it is still a question." Dark Knight Rose said coldly. Her eyes flashed with wisdom as if she could see through everything. Lu Ming's heart trembled. This Dark Knight Rose was really difficult to deal with. Her wisdom was not to be underestimated. She did not seem like a young person at all. Instead, she seemed like an old monster that had lived for countless years. Indeed, Lu Ming could not detonate the Gale bead. And even if he could, Lu Ming would not detonate it and really die together with the other party. "Collect!" At this moment, Xiao Wuji shouted loudly. The bloody light on his body surged. The war blade in his hand buzzed and vibrated non-stop. Then the vibration quickly weakened. Finally, it turned into a ray of light and was absorbed into Xiao Wuji's body. While Lu Ming was confronting Dark Knight Rose and the others, Xiao Wuji used the power of the Blood Shura to suppress the Warblade. He finally succeeded in subduing it. Haha. After subduing the battle saber, Xiao Wuji let out a long laugh. He was very carefree. Then, he swept his gaze toward Lu Ming with a ferocious expression. He took a step forward and appeared beside Dark Knight Rose and the rest. He formed a horn-like formation and surrounded Lu Ming and Ling Yue. What's the point of talking so much nonsense with them? They're so stubborn that it's useless to recruit them into the Huiying Alliance. Xiao Wuji said savagely, his killing intent becoming even colder. "I've already given you a chance, but you don't know how to cherish it. Then I can only send you on your way." Dark Knight Rose said coldly. The black petal reappeared in her hand. The black petal turned into a jet of black divine light and shot towards Lu Ming. At the same time, Di Jinni activated the ancient sword and charged towards Lu Ming. Xiao Wuji controlled the remaining half of the Azura Emperor sword. The three of them unleashed their killing weapons at the same time, unleashing a terrifying attack. Lu Ming and Ling Yue didn't dare to be careless and retaliated with all their might. Ling Yue activated the Elven Royal Bow and shot an arrow. The arrow collided with the petals of the Dark Knight Rose, erupting with an earth-shattering boom. However, the outcome was that the arrow shot by Ling Yue was defeated, while the petals only weakened a little and continued to fly toward Lu Ming. At the same time, two terrifying sword lights flew towards Lu Ming. Lu Ming activated the energy within the Gale Pearl with all his might. A terrifying storm formed a wall of wind to block their attacks. Boom, 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 boom. As the petals of Dark Knight Rose were weakened, they weren't powerful enough and were blocked by the Gale Wall. However, the sword gleams of Emperor Jinni and Xiao Wuji were unusually terrifying. They bombarded the wall of Gale and constantly tore it apart. In the end, they completely broke through the Gale and continued to slash toward Lu Ming with the remaining power. "Block!" Lu Ming shouted. He held the silver spear that Qiu Qiu had transformed into and stabbed out with all his might. Bush, bush. Two silver spear lights and two sword lights fiercely collided with each other. A dazzling light appeared and energy overflowed. Lu Ming felt two incomparably sharp sword intents breaking through the silver spear lights and surging towards his body. Di Jinni and Xiao Wuji had used their trump cards. They were too strong and their strength had far surpassed Qiu Qiu's. Lu Ming retreated, but there were still a few sword wounds on his body that went straight to his bones. Moreover, these sword chi were filled with destructive power. They crazily exploded in Lu Ming's body, wanting to tear apart Lu Ming's body. However, every cell in Lu Ming's body contained powerful energy. Suppress! Lu Ming shouted in his heart. His cells trembled and waves of taboo energy exploded, finally suppressing the sword qi. Mu Yun, how are you? Ling Yue asked with concern. Fortunately, I'm fine. Lu Ming took a deep breath and said, What should we do next? Ling Yue asked again. At that moment, Ling Yue had lost her mind and was a little panicked. Because the three young men in front of her were too terrifying. It seemed like the three of them were at the first godly emperor layer, the same level as her. However, each of them was stronger than her. Besides, each of them had a trump card. If the three of them joined forces, she and Lu Ming wouldn't be able to defeat them. If this continued, they would be in danger. Mu Yun, with your talent, it's a pity to get rid of you. However, you're stubborn, just like a guy I met before. I can only get rid of you. Shouted the Dark Knight Rose. She was surrounded by a strange black light. The flower in her hand was releasing a terrifying qi. A dazzling light moved towards Lu Ming. At the same time, Di Jinni and Xiu Wuji also attacked. They were both filled with murderous qi. Their sword lights were terrifying to the extreme. Ling Yue used all her strength to pull the royal elf bow, but it was still broken by the Dark Knight Rose's attack. A few attacks instantly approached Lu Ming. But this time, Lu Ming didn't activate the power of the Zephyr Pearl. He just stood there motionlessly. Mu Yun, quickly fight back. Quickly fight back! Shouted Ling Yue. However, Lu Ming still didn't activate the power of the Zephyr Pearl. Die! Shouted Xiu Wuji. His eyes were filled with murderous qi. Di Jinni didn't say anything, but the light in his eyes was incomparably resplendent, like two divine swords. Their attacks were about to reach Lu Ming's body. At that moment, Lu Ming moved. He didn't activate the Zephyr Pearl. Instead, he suddenly waved the staff in his left hand. His left hand had always been holding the staff. At that moment, he suddenly waved it and the air exploded. A violent qi whistled through the air, bringing with it a terrifying coldness. It swept in all directions. Ding, ding, ding. There were a few consecutive sounds of metal clashing. The divine weapon staff accurately struck a few of the sword lights. The staff let out a buzzing sound like a big bell. A few sword lights were also defeated, turning into energy and disappearing. The attacks from the Dark Knight Rose, Di Jinni, and Xiu Wuji were all blocked. Chapter 3888. Lu Ming waved the long staff weapon and blocked the attacks of Di Jinni and the rest. Moreover, there was a terrifying chill that spread out from the long staff weapon and surged towards Di Jinni and the rest. The ancient sword in Di Jinni's hand and the half of the Azura Emperor sword in Xiu Wuji's hand were covered by a layer of frost and revealed a bone-piercing chill. Even the petals of Dark Knight Rose that were dancing in the air were covered by a layer of frost. The few of them retreated and continuously activated their divine power to repel the frost on the weapons. How is this possible? How are you able to use this divine weapon now? Xiu Wuji shouted in disbelief. They could already determine that these two weapons were two of the 18 palace garrison divine weapons under the Life Spirit Heavenly Court. Such a divine weapon was not to be underestimated. It would be difficult to subdue it. He had used all his strength and the power of Blood Azura to barely subdue it. However, he could not use it at all and could only keep it reluctantly. If he wanted to use it, he would need to spend a large amount of time to refine it. However, when Lu Ming was attacked by them, not only did he successfully subdue the long staff weapon, but he was also able to use it on the spot and display some of its power. How was this possible? No wonder Xiu Wuji shouted in disbelief. Dark Knight Rose and Di Jinni's pupils constricted and they were shocked. If you can't do it, it doesn't mean that others can't do it. It only means that you can't do it. Lu Ming said indifferently as he held the snow-white long staff weapon in his hand and gave off an invincible aura. What did you say? I can't do it? I don't believe that you can use it. I don't believe that you can. Kill. Xiu Wuji shouted as if he had gone mad and charged towards Lu Ming again. Today, Lu Ming had given him too many blows. He was so jealous of Lu Ming that he was about to go crazy. His killing intent towards Lu Ming was also extremely strong and he was about to lose his mind. When Xiao Wuji moved, Dark Knight Rose and Di Jinni also moved. They also charged towards Lu Ming and unleashed terrifying attacks. At the side, Ling Yue drew her bow and arrow, wanting to attack, but Lu Ming stopped her. "You don't have to do anything. Leave the rest to me." Lu Ming smiled faintly. With a shake of his arm, the staff shot through the air and rapidly grew in size until it was like a mountain, sweeping through the world. Boom! Heaven and earth boiled as the violent force crushed toward Anya Rose and the other two. At the same time, there was an incomparably terrifying chill in the energy. Everywhere it passed, it was as if everything was about to be frozen. Dark Knight Rose and the other two's attacks collided with the long staff, creating a terrifying explosion. Following which, the divine light and the two sword radiances collapsed at the same time. The violent energy caused Dark Knight Rose and the other two to retreat once again. This time, the trio's faces turned incredibly unpleasant. Even a fool could see that Lu Ming could indeed control the long staff. Damn it, how could this be? Xiao Wuji continued to roar. The truth was right in front of his eyes. He had no choice but to believe it. Boom! Lu Ming held the long staff and looked like an invincible battle god. He took a step forward and his chi soared to the sky. Dark Knight Rose and the other two couldn't help but take a step back. They were intimidated by Lu Ming's chi. "It seems like the three of you won't be able to kill me today." Lu Ming smiled faintly, but he looked invincible. "Even if you can control the long staff, how many attacks can you make? Can you withstand it with your strength?" Dark Knight Rose asked tentatively. "Then you can try." Lu Ming smiled and continued, "Furthermore, given your cultivation level, how many moves can you unleash when you activate such a powerful killing weapon? At that time, we won't know who will kill who." Indeed, Dark Knight Rose and the other two were only at the first godly emperor layer. It was very difficult for them to control such a weapon. For example, Ling Yue was already sweating profusely. Her chi was unstable and she was a little weak. When she was at the quasi-emperor layer, she could only shoot one arrow with her bloody elven royal bow. Even if she broke through to the first godly emperor layer and her strength increased, she couldn't use it indefinitely. After breaking through to the first godly emperor layer, the power of the arrows increased greatly. At the same time, the consumption of energy also increased greatly. She couldn't use many attacks. Dark Knight Rose, Di Jinni and Xiao Wuji were the same. They couldn't use many attacks. Between them and Lu Ming, who would be the first to give up? If they couldn't hold on, it would be troublesome because Lu Ming had a very strong metallic creature. Dark Knight Rose and the others' eyes were twinkling. They already wanted to retreat. "Mu Yun, I admit that you're really strong. How about this, let's cooperate. You're qualified to cooperate with us. Let's explore the Life Spirit Heavenly Court together and find the treasures there. What do you think?" Dark Knight Rose said. Before, she wanted Lu Ming to join her and join the Huiying Alliance. But now, she wanted to cooperate with Lu Ming. Unknowingly, she had already retreated and placed Lu Ming on the same level. Lu Ming smiled faintly. This was within his expectations. Because he and Ling Yue both had Life Spirit Origin stone fragments in their hands. If Dark Knight Rose and the others wanted to continue exploring the Life Spirit Heavenly Court, they had to have Life Spirit Origin stone fragments. The more the better. Otherwise, they would snatch them from their hands. This was their initial plan. But now, they had no choice but to change their plans. Cooperating with Lu Ming and the others was the best choice. "We can cooperate, but we have to act separately. If you have any news, you can inform us at any time and then we can investigate together," Lu Ming said with a harmless smile on his face. However, Dark Knight Rose and the others gritted their teeth in anger. Damn it! What did Lu Ming mean? He wanted them to work hard and find clues about the Life Spirit Heavenly Court. For example, clues about the other Life Spirit Palace. After they found them, they would inform him. Lu Ming wanted to obtain benefits without expending any effort. How could they not be angry? "Mu Yun, aren't you going overboard? Are you treating us as free labor?" Dark Knight Rose said. "Then we don't have to cooperate. Anyway, I'm already satisfied with this divine weapon. I don't have much ambition. Please go ahead." Lu Ming said indifferently. You, Dark Knight Rose and Xiao Wuji were so angry that their faces turned black. Di Jinny's eyes shone brightly as if he was about to attack at any time. However, no matter how angry they were, there was nothing they could do. They couldn't kill Lu Ming. What could they do? Good, very good. Leave your contact details. We can contact each other at any time. Dark Knight Rose's gaze turned and revealed a smile. This made Lu Ming think that this woman was terrifying. Lu Ming immediately left the contact details of the illusory sacred jade. I hope we can cooperate happily in the future. In the end, Dark Knight Rose smiled and left with Di Jinny and Xiao Wuji. Chapter 3889. Dark Knight Rose and the other two left. Before leaving, Di Jinny took a deep look at Lu Ming, and a trace of doubt flashed in his eyes. He had always felt that Lu Ming's temperament was very similar to that of a person. A life and death enemy of his. However, the life source aura of the two were completely different. They shouldn't be the same person. With doubts, Di Jinny and the others left. After Dark Knight Rose, Di Jinny, and the others left, Lu Ming let out a long breath. His aura rapidly weakened. The consumption of this divine weapon is really great. Lu Ming sighed and hurriedly put away the long rod divine weapon. To be honest, he could only barely use a few moves just now. After all, he had just subdued the long rod divine weapon and had yet to refine it. The reason why he could use it was all because of the profoundness of the taboo power. However, the consumption of such a divine weapon was too great. Even if it was a taboo body, the consumption of energy after using it a few times just now was extremely shocking. Lu Ming was almost unable to hold on. Fortunately, Dark Knight Rose and the others were scared away in the end. Mu Yun, are you all right? Ling Yue asked with concern. I'm fine. We can't stay here for long. Let's leave quickly. Lu Ming said. Ling Yue nodded. The two of them turned into two streaks of light and headed in the opposite direction of Dark Knight Rose and the other two. Mu Yun, how are you so sure that Dark Knight Rose will cooperate with us? On the way, Ling Yue asked curiously. Dark Knight Rose's ambition is very great. She wants to create a force comparable to the Heavenly Palace. It can be said that her heart is higher than the sky. However, to create such a force, the resources needed are extremely terrifying. Therefore, the resources of the Life Spirit Heavenly Court are too important to them. And in our hands, we have a few pieces of Life Spirit Origin Stone fragments. If they want to investigate the Life Spirit Heavenly Court in the future, they will need a lot of Life Spirit Origin Stone fragments. Unless they collect enough Life Spirit Origin Stone fragments, they will need our help. If they don't cooperate with us, what can they do? Lu Ming explained with a smile. Ling Yue's beautiful eyes flashed, surprised by Lu Ming's intelligence. He had actually thought of so many things in an instant. How are we going to get out? There's only one exit in Bing Xian's Life Soul Palace. If Dark Knight Rose and the others are guarding the exit, we won't be able to get out. Ling Yue said. Then there's nothing we can do. We can only wait. Let's wait for a while and then go take a look. Let's go to that snowy mountain. Having said that, Lu Ming headed towards the snowy mountain where he had been cultivating in seclusion. With Dark Knight Rose's intelligence, she would have sensed that something was wrong. It was normal for her to guard the entrance of Bing Xian's Life Soul Palace. Therefore, Lu Ming did not intend to go out now. Anyway, he wanted to refine the long rod weapon and study the fighting souls in the Life Spirit Vitality Stone fragments. It was not a bad idea to cultivate here for a while. Of course, the most suitable place for Lu Ming to cultivate was naturally that snowy mountain. In the snowy mountains, the cold wind whistled, the chill was bone-chilling. Lu Ming used the strong wind to envelop himself and Ling Yue, and successfully arrived at the glacier canyon. It was relatively safer here. It was difficult for others to enter, so they could cultivate and research in peace. Ling Yue sat cross-legged at the side and took out the Life Spirit Origin Stone fragments to study. As for Lu Ming, he also took out the Life Spirit Origin Stone fragments to study. Within the Life Spirit Origin Stone fragments, there were so many powerful, undying battle souls. If he could use them, why would he be afraid of Dark Knight Rose? However, after studying it for a long time, he still didn't know how to use it. He could only ask the stone spirit of the life spirit origin stone fragments. If you want to use it, it's very simple. You need to use your spiritual sense to come into contact with the undying battle soul inside the life spirit origin stone. After you get familiar with it, you will be able to summon the undying battle soul from the life spirit origin stone fragments. The stone spirit of the life spirit origin stone fragments explained. There's no need to go through so much trouble. Lu Ming was slightly disappointed. Originally, he had thought that as long as he collected them, he would be able to release as much as he wanted. It seemed that he was overthinking things. The truth was obviously not that simple. He still needed to slowly sense it. What do you think? Of course, it's not that easy. Moreover, the strength of the undying fighting soul is related to your cultivation. The stronger your cultivation, the stronger the undying fighting soul that you can release. This is because you won't be able to sense the undying fighting soul that is much stronger than you. It won't come into contact with you. The stone spirit of the life spirit origin stone fragments said. Lu Ming was even more disappointed. He was disappointed that not only did he need to sense and come into contact with the undying battle soul, but it also had something to do with his cultivation. To put it bluntly, those who were much stronger than him did not care about him at all. In this way, the undying battle souls that he had collected were very limited. Lu Ming's dream of bringing a group of undying battle souls to the world was shattered just like that. Of course, Lu Ming was naturally reluctant to give up and not use them. Immediately, Lu Ming began to try according to the method of the stone spirit of the life spirit origin stone fragments. His spiritual awareness appeared inside the life spirit origin stone fragments and then approached an undying battle soul. The undying battle soul's chi was around the third godly emperor layer. It was easy for the undying battle soul to come into contact with Lu Ming. It allowed Lu Ming to approach it, and there was a strange resonance between the two of them. At first, they were unfamiliar with each other, but as time passed, they gradually became familiar with each other. One day later, Lu Ming felt that it was about time. He withdrew his spiritual awareness from the life spirit origin stone fragments, and then the undying battle soul came out of the life spirit origin stone fragments and floated around Lu Ming. As soon as Lu Ming gave the order, the undying battle soul would attack him violently. Not bad. Lu Ming nodded with satisfaction. It had been so easy to obtain an undying battle soul of the third godly emperor layer. It was already very good. Such an undying battle soul wasn't afraid of death. At a critical moment, it could be very useful. Then he put the undying battle soul away and Lu Ming's spiritual awareness appeared inside the life spirit origin stone fragments again. This time, Lu Ming sensed a terrifying undying battle soul. The chi of the undying battle soul was terrifying and unfathomable. It gave Lu Ming a lot of pressure. It was much stronger than the chi of the seventh godly emperor layer. Lu Ming guessed that the undying battle soul's cultivation level was probably higher than the godly emperor layer. It was a gigantic undying battle soul that looked like a bull. It was lying there lazily and yawning from time to time. Lu Ming was very excited. If he could summon the undying battle soul, it would be awesome. It would be like having a powerful fighter with him at all times. Lu Ming flew over and tried to make contact and communicate with the undying fighting soul. However, this huge bull-shaped undying fighting soul opened its eyes and glanced at him. Then, its eyes were filled with disdain before it closed its eyes again. Chapter 3890. Nestle, I am being stared at. Lu Ming was annoyed when he saw the disdain in the bull-shaped undying fighting soul's eyes. He then surrounded the bull-shaped undying fighting soul and tried to communicate with it. Senior Bull, what do you mean by that look? Are you looking down on me? Let me tell you, I have a forbidden body. Come, cooperate with me and become my protector. When I grow stronger, I will give you great benefits. What? You are ignoring me? You are not interested in a forbidden body? Preposterous. Lu Ming tried to communicate with the bull-shaped undying fighting soul for a long time, but the bull-shaped undying fighting soul did not even look at him. This was a huge blow to Lu Ming. The undying fighting soul did not have intelligence. How could it know about a forbidden body? It was acting on instinct. Indeed, the vitality stone fragment was right. His cultivation level was too low and it was difficult for him to communicate with it. In the end, Lu Ming gave up and looked for his next target. That is, Lu Ming saw a giant python. It was huge and it was like a mountain range in the sky. Lu Ming remembered that the giant python was one of the 8 strongest undying fighting souls at the peak of the mountain. Its aura was unfathomable and it was many times more terrifying than the bull-shaped undying fighting soul. Lu Ming had collected 3 undying fighting souls at this level. Lu Ming's heart raced. If he could summon such an undying fighting soul, then, immediately, Lu Ming flew over and tried to communicate and sense the python's undying fighting soul. Naturally, the outcome was destined. The python's undying fighting soul did not even open its eyes from the beginning to the end. It ignored Lu Ming completely. In the end, Lu Ming was discouraged. It seemed that it was not right to be whimsical. He had to take it step by step. After that, Lu Ming gave up on the strong undying fighting souls and tried to communicate with the weaker ones. After some effort, Lu Ming finally understood the limit of his summoning. 4th Godly Emperor Layer. He could summon the undying soul of a cultivator of the 4th Godly Emperor Layer, but it was difficult for him to communicate with them. However, this was already enough. Time gradually passed, and a few months had passed in the blink of an eye. Lu Ming had managed to establish a connection with more than 100 immortal battle spirits, and was able to summon them to fight for him. Lu Ming was satisfied. More than 100 undying fighting souls were at the 4th or 3rd level of the Godly Emperor realm. They were not afraid of death and they were very powerful. At the critical moment, they could be of great help. However, Ling Yue's progress didn't seem to be as fast as Lu Ming's. After all, Lu Ming had a forbidden body. It would be easier for him to gain the recognition of the undying fighting souls. It would be easier for him to communicate and sense them. Ling Yue, on the other hand, was a little slower. Lu Ming was almost done with his research on the undying fighting soul, so he started to refine the long staff weapon. Yi Futian took out the long staff divine weapon. Forbidden power covered the long staff divine weapon and began to refine it. It was extremely difficult to refine such a weapon. Ordinary weapons couldn't be compared to it. It took him 10 years to refine it. After spending a total of 10 years, Lu Ming finally refined the long rod divine weapon. The long staff weapon turned into a beam of light and flew into Lu Ming's consciousness. It was floating in Lu Ming's consciousness. Xianbing staff. When Lu Ming was refining the long staff weapon, a name appeared in his mind. That was the name of the long staff weapon. It was the Xianbing staff that was guarding the Xianbing Life Spirit Palace. The Xianbing staff appeared in Lu Ming's hand. He swung the staff, and a huge explosion occurred. Strong qi swept in all directions. Not bad, not bad. Lu Ming nodded. He was very satisfied. The power of the Xianbing staff was even stronger than the Zephyr Pearl. It was enough to suppress Xiao Wuji, Di Jianyi, or Dark Night Rose. When he used it, it was easier and easier. It wasn't as difficult as before. The consumption of forbidden energy was also less. Of course, this was far from the power of the Xianbing staff. It was just that Lu Ming's current cultivation was limited. He could only unleash such power. As Lu Ming's cultivation increased, his control over the Xianbing staff would deepen. The power it could unleash would also become stronger. This could be Lu Ming's new killing weapon. Of course, Lu Ming also understood that such a killing weapon couldn't be used easily. This was because such a weapon was too high level and too precious. Once it was discovered by those terrifying existences, they would probably kill him and snatch the Xianbing staff away. Therefore, he had to be careful when using it in the future. He couldn't use it unless he had no other choice. At this moment, Lu Ming and Ling Yue decided to go out. It had already been more than 10 years. Dark Night Rose and the others should have already left. Furthermore, even if Dark Night Rose and the others were still guarding the entrance of the Bing Xian Life Soul Palace, Lu Ming was no longer afraid. Now that he had refined the mysterious ice rod and had more than 100 undying fighting souls in the natal spirit stone fragment that he could control, even if he met Anya Rose and the other two again, he was not afraid. Even if he could not defeat them, he could still escape. Along the way, they didn't encounter any unforeseen events. They arrived at the entrance of the Bingxian Life Soul Palace without any obstructions. Dark Knight Rose and the others had already left. The two of them safely left the Bingxian Life Soul Palace and arrived at a remote planet. Alright, the exploration of the Bingxian Life Soul Palace has been completed. There are no other clues about the Life Soul Heavenly Court, so let's split up here. Lu Ming said to Ling Yue. Split up? Ling Yue was slightly stunned. Of course, I'm going back to the Fengdu Sword Sect in the Iron Sea Star Field Group. Lu Ming said. You're not going back to the Elf Clan with me? Ling Yue said. Of course I won't go with you to the Elf Clan. Lu Ming immediately shook his head. You? Ling Yue's eyes widened, filled with grievance. Lu Ming actually rejected her so quickly. What did he mean by that? Did he hate her that much? We are engaged and will get married sooner or later. Why don't you come back to the Elf Clan with me this time and hold a wedding? Ling Yue stared at Lu Ming. Marriage, of course not. Lu Ming immediately shook his head and said seriously, how can a lowly person like me be worthy of you? Didn't you all look down on me in the past? I think we should just forget about it. It's not suitable. You hate me that much? Ling Yue bit her lips, and tears began to appear in her big eyes. She had a pitiful look on her face. No, I don't hate you. It's just that, to be honest, I already have someone I like. Lu Ming said. You have someone you like? Could it be that the other party is more beautiful than me, and that her talent is higher than mine? Ling Yue asked, her eyes revealing a raging flame of curiosity. A woman's heart of comparison still flared up. Chapter 3891. Lu Ming was speechless by Ling Yue's question, and could only answer honestly, yes, in my eyes, she is the most beautiful and the most talented. Lu Ming was referring to Xian Yanqing. In Lu Ming's eyes, Xian Yanqing was naturally the best. Only Autumn Moon could compare to him. No matter how beautiful Ling Yue was or how talented she was, she couldn't compare to Xian Yanqing. Seeing Lu Ming's reply, Ling Yue let out a faint sigh. She knew that Lu Ming really didn't have any feelings for him. In her heart, she really felt that it was a pity. Lu Ming's talent was simply too high. She had encountered countless monstrous geniuses. If she lined them up, she could circle a planet several times. However, she was certain that none of them could compare to Lu Ming. If she had to marry someone, she would definitely choose Lu Ming. Unfortunately, Lu Ming already had a sweetheart. The Elf Clan had actually looked down on such a genius in the past, completely ignoring him and not interacting with him at all. They were truly blind. After sorting out her emotions, Ling Yue looked at Lu Ming and said, You already have a sweetheart, so I won't force you. However, I still hope that you can help me once and follow me back to the Elf Clan. You still want to marry me? Lu Ming was shocked. No, we don't need to get married. I just hope that you and I will pretend to be together and do me a favor. You also know that my father wants to marry a genius of the Angel Clan, but that's a playboy. I would rather die than marry him, and you are my fiancé. If you and I return to the Elf Clan and pretend that we are already together, then my father will naturally not force me to marry that genius of the Angel Clan. Ling Yue said. Why should I help you? If I help you, I will definitely offend that genius of the Angel Clan. This is not worth it for me. Lu Ming immediately shook his head. We've known each other for a while. Can't you help me? Even if we're not fated to be together, we're still friends, aren't we? Are you just going to watch me fall into the fire pit and not care? Do you have the heart to do that? As she spoke, Ling Yue's tears actually fell down her face with a pitter-patter. The beauty's tears were too lethal. Lu Ming could not withstand it all of a sudden. Lu Ming felt a headache coming on. Don't worry, I won't let you help me for free. I know you need a lot of energy to cultivate. When we return to the Elf Clan, I will give you some treasures with pure energy, enough for you to break through to the Divine Emperor realm. What do you think? Ling Yue continued. All right then, I'll promise you. But first, I really won't marry you. Lu Ming said. Lu Ming dared to swear to the heavens that he really wasn't doing this for the other party's treasure. He was just being kind and wanted to help the other party. Alright, don't worry. Ling Yuwei immediately burst into laughter. After agreeing to Ling Yuwei's request, Lu Ming could only change his route and follow Ling Yuwei towards the elf clan. The elf clan was ranked 33rd in the Great Desolate 10,000 races. It was undoubtedly a very powerful and prosperous race. When the elf clan was at its peak, it was close to the top 10. It was extremely glorious, so the territory occupied by the elf clan was also very vast. As for the elf clan, they also had a mother planet called the elf clan's mother planet. It was also born when the heavens and earth first opened. It was similar to the dragon clan's mother planet, but it wasn't as large and vast as the dragon clan's mother planet. Legend had it that the dragon clan's mother planet had given birth to 49 primordial divine dragons, while the elf clan's mother planet had given birth to 12 primordial elves. However, as long as it was a mother planet, it was known as immortality. A month later, Lu Ming and Ling Yuwei arrived at the elf clan's mother planet. What a prosperous planet! I wonder how many powerful existences there are here. Lu Ming sighed. This was the second time Lu Ming had come to a mother planet level life planet. The elf clan's mother planet and the dragon clan's mother planet gave off a completely different feeling. The dragon clan's mother planet had experienced a tragic battle. In the end, it was sealed by the dragon clan with 10,000 dragon seals. When Lu Ming went there, the dragon clan's mother planet was recovering. However, it was recovering and was far from reaching its peak. Furthermore, it lacked powerhouses. On the other hand, the elf clan's mother planet was different. It was prosperous to the extreme, and the divine energy was extremely dense. With a casual breath, it was as if there was a substantial divine energy being sucked into one's mouth. On the ground, there were countless mountains and rivers that gave birth to countless living beings. Among them, divine medicines were everywhere, and they were lush and verdant. This was a true holy land for cultivation. At the same time, Lu Ming spread out his spiritual sense and felt that the entire dragon clan's mother planet was filled with countless extremely oppressive and terrifying auras. Although these auras were all restrained and dormant, Lu Ming's spiritual sense was very sharp. When he sensed carefully, he could still feel a terrifying pressure. It was unknown how many powerhouses were hibernating in the entire elf clan's mother planet. Is this the foundation of a large clan? It's truly terrifying. This is still a race ranked 33rd. How terrifying would the top 10 races be? And how strong would the heavenly palace be to be able to suppress all the races? Lu Ming sighed in his heart. We're almost at the elf palace. At this moment, Ling Yuwei spoke out, interrupting Lu Ming's thoughts. Lu Ming looked forward. Even though Lu Ming thought that he was experienced and knowledgeable, his eyes were still wide open and his heart trembled. In front of him was a forest. However, this forest was simply too big and boundless. Even with Lu Ming's eyesight, he couldn't see the end of it. The most important thing was that the trees in this forest were too big. Ancient trees rose from the ground, towering into the clouds. The shortest one was 100 miles tall. The tallest one was 1,000 miles, 10,000 miles, and 100,000 miles tall. They pierced through the atmosphere. The diameter of each ancient tree was tens of miles, and the thickest was tens of thousands of miles. In front of Lu Ming's eyes, it was as if countless world trees had appeared. In front of the ancient tree, a person was as small as a speck of dust. On each ancient tree, there were magnificent palaces built. Within the palaces, there were figures flying back and forth. They were all elves. The man was handsome, and the woman was beautiful. It's the princess has returned. As soon as the two of them approached, they were discovered. Many surprised voices rang out. Many elves appeared in front of them and bowed respectfully to Ling Yuwei. No need to be so polite. Ling Yuwei nodded and flew into the depths of the forest with Lu Ming. On the way, many elves greeted Ling Yuwei. Then, they all looked at Lu Ming curiously. Ling Yuwei had actually brought an unfamiliar man back, which surprised them. One had to know that there were as many geniuses as the stars in the sky who pursued Ling Yuwei, but they had never seen Ling Yuwei take the initiative to bring a man back. This was the first time, so the elves were naturally curious. This young man looks so familiar. Oh right, he's Mu Yun. I've seen him in the dream jade. Suddenly, someone shouted. Chapter 3892. Among the elves, there was finally someone who recognized Lu Ming. Back then, because of Ling Yue's matter, the geniuses of the various races had charged to the Iron Sea Star region and engaged in an intense confrontation with Lu Ming. Ling Yue was the elf princess, so she naturally attracted the attention of countless elves. Many people had seen Lu Ming in the dream jade. Just now, he was surprised and didn't recognize him. Now that he looked at him seriously, he naturally recognized Lu Ming. It's really him, that Mu Yun from the Iron Sea Star region. The princess actually brought him back to the Elven Imperial capital. Could it be that she really wants to marry him? No, I don't believe it. This isn't true. My heart hurts so much. The princess is mine. Many elven men clutched their chests and cried out in grief. Lu Ming's face was full of smiles as he sighed in his heart. The elf princess was indeed very popular. He didn't know if it was right or wrong to come and help Ling Yue this time. The two of them did not stop and continued to fly deeper into the elven palace. The deeper they flew, the larger and more majestic the ancient trees became. On top of every ancient tree, there was a palace. From afar, it was truly incomparably majestic. Not long after, the two of them arrived in front of an ancient tree that was 30,000 kilometers tall. This elven tree and the palace above it are my private property. You can live up there first and wait for me to arrange it later. How about it? Ling Yue said. Lu Ming nodded. Naturally, he had no objections. The two of them flew into the palace in the middle of the branches. The palace was extremely majestic. Inside, there were courtyards, pavilions, small bridges, and flowing water. There was even a lake on one side. It was magnificent, like a garden in the sky. This is for you. See if it's useful to you. At this time, Ling Yue took out something. It was an emerald green thing that looked like a wooden stick. It was as thick as a finger and emitted waves of fragrance. This is... Lu Ming took it and sensed it. His eyes lit up slightly. On this wooden stick, Lu Ming could feel an incomparably strong life essence. This life essence was somewhat similar to the bone pearl he had obtained before. Of course, it was only similar. In terms of energy, it was still inferior to that bone pearl. What is this? Lu Ming asked. This is called the Elven Wood Heart, and it's the specialty of the Elven race. See if it's useful. I promise to get you some resources, and if it's useful, I'll collect a batch of Elven Wood Hearts for you. Ling Yue said. Of course. Lu Ming nodded repeatedly. The more such treasures there were, the better. All right, you can stay here for now. I'll go and collect some for you. Ling Yue nodded and left. Lu Ming stayed in the palace, trying to figure out the secret technique and train himself. Ling Yue and Lu Ming separated and headed deeper into the Elven Palace. However, not long after, they were stopped by an old elf with a head full of white hair. Greetings, princess. The old elf bowed slightly, his face full of kindness. Third elder, are you looking for me? Ling Yue's eyes flashed. It's not me who's looking for you. It's His Majesty who's looking for you. Right now, His Majesty is waiting for your highness in the fairy palace. The old elf said, Father is looking for me. Ling Yue's eyes flashed again, and a trace of panic appeared in the depths of her eyes. The elven race was a very special race. They were both a race and a kingdom, known as the Elven Imperial Court. Therefore, this place was known as the Elven Palace, and Ling Yue was also known as the Elven Princess. As for the Elven Patriarch, he was naturally known as the Elven Emperor. Princess, please. The old elf waved his hand slightly. Ling Yue nodded and stepped into the air, heading towards the Elven Palace. The Elven Palace was the place where the elves usually discussed matters. It was very spacious and majestic, but right now, there weren't many people. There was a middle-aged elf sitting at the top. Although he was old, he was still very handsome. Moreover, there was an unparalleled majesty that was emitted from him. He was the current Elven Patriarch and also the Elven Emperor, Ling Huashua. Below, there were a few figures sitting. A middle-aged man and two young women. This middle-aged man was Ling Yue's second uncle. The two young men and women were her second uncle's children. However, they were both older than Ling Yuwei and could be considered Ling Yuwei's cousins. After Ling Yuwei walked in, her gaze swept across the room before she stepped forward with a smile on her face. Yuwei greets Royal Father. It's been a long time since we last met. I miss Royal Father very much. Miss me? Ling Huashua coldly snorted and said with a dark face, I thought you were having fun outside and had already forgotten about me, your Royal Father. How could that be? Your daughter is always thinking about Royal Father outside. It's just that I encountered a fortuitous encounter and went into seclusion to cultivate and break through to the Divine Emperor realm. That's why I didn't come back. As soon as I finished cultivating, I rushed back to see you. Ling Yuwei said with a coquettish tone. You have indeed broken through to the Divine Emperor realm. Not bad. Ling Huashua nodded, revealing a trace of satisfaction, and his expressions softened a little. From the Quasi-Emperor to the Divine Emperor, there was a threshold that was very difficult to break through. Many geniuses were stuck at this threshold. They were unable to break through and would regret it for the rest of their lives. Once they crossed this threshold, they would truly be considered the upper echelons of the universe, especially the younger generation. Once they crossed this threshold, they would truly be considered the top geniuses of the universe. Without crossing it, those true big shots wouldn't care at all. For example, the top 100 quasi-emperors, the top 10 races, and the heavenly palace wouldn't interfere. They were all arranged by some idle people and couldn't be considered formal. In the quasi-emperor realm, no matter how talented one was, in the eyes of the true big shots, it was just a small matter. In the quasi-emperor realm, no matter how strong one was, if one was stuck there and couldn't break through, everything would be in vain. Therefore, Ling Yuwei's breakthrough was of great significance. Ling Huashua was naturally happy. He broke through to the Divine Emperor realm? At the side, Ling Yuwei's two cousins were stunned. A trace of displeasure appeared in the depths of their eyes. However, it only flashed for a moment before disappearing without a trace. Cousin, I heard that during this period of time, you and that Mu Yun from the Iron Sea Star region are together. This time, you even brought that Mu Yun back. I wonder if it's true? Ling Yuwei's cousin, Ling Piao, said. As soon as she said this, Ling Huashua's face, which had already eased up a little, darkened again. That's right. During this period of time, I was indeed together with Mu Yun. However, Mu Yun and I were engaged. It's normal for us to be together, isn't it? Ling Yuwei generously admitted it. The reason she brought Lu Ming back was to let everyone know that she was already together with Mu Yun. Nonsense. Ling Huashua slammed the table and berated. The majesty on his body became even stronger, and Ling Yuwei immediately fell silent. That's right, cousin. It's not that I want to criticize you, but that Mu Yun, although he has some talent, how can he be worthy of you? The genius of the angel race is a good match for you. Ling Piao interrupted again. Chapter 3893. That's right. Moreover, our elf clan has already agreed with the angel clan to form a marriage alliance with the angel clan. This is a great opportunity for our elf clan. Cousin, you can't be too selfish. Ling Yuwei's cousin also spoke up. Piao and the others are right. Yuwei, this matter is not up to you. Ling Yuwei's second uncle continued. I've said it before, I won't marry that playboy from the angel clan. If you want to curry favor with others, go ahead and curry favor with them. Don't pull me in, I'm not interested in currying favor with others. What's more, my engagement with Mu Yun was set by grandfather. After grandfather passed away, did you ignore the promise he made when he was alive? Is this how filial you are? Ling Yuwei retorted. As soon as these words were spoken, the expressions of Ling Huashua and the others turned even uglier. Ling Yuwei, this was a blatant slap to their faces. Everything has to be done for the greater good. Moreover, your talent is peerless. That Mu Yun is not worthy of you at all. Ling Huashua said, his tone slightly softening. Big brother is right. Back then, father was too loyal. Sometimes, he would do things in a biased manner. We can't continue to make mistakes. How can that Mu Yun compare to the geniuses of the angel clan? He probably came back with you to climb up the social ladder and borrow the power of our elf clan. Ling Yuwei's second uncle continued. In any case, they didn't think highly of Lu Ming and suggested various marriage alliances with the Angel clan. While they were chatting, the palace where Lu Ming was staying was bustling with noise and excitement. Not long after Ling Yuwei left, someone came looking for her. Mu Yun, get the hell out here. Outside the palace, someone roared. Trouble has come knocking so quickly. Lu Ming rubbed his temples, feeling a headache. He had long known that trouble would come knocking, but he didn't expect it to come so quickly. Lu Ming opened the door and walked out. He saw some young people standing in the air outside, all of them youths from the elf clan. Seeing Lu Ming come out, the youths of the elf race stared at Lu Ming. It was as if they were looking at him with swords. If looks could kill, then Lu Ming would have turned into a hornet's nest. Everyone, I've just arrived, and you've already come to see me. The enthusiasm of the elves really surprises me. Lu Ming grinned. In terms of shamelessness, Lu Ming believed that he was second only to Dandan. The young elf was stunned. To see him? Passion? Bullshit. Brat, you should know your place. Why don't you take a piss and look at yourself in the mirror? How can you be worthy of our princess? If you know what's good for you, you'd better get out of the elf tribe's territory and never meet our princess again. That's right. Our princess is the pride of the heavens. How could an ordinary man be a match for her? Don't make yourself a laughingstock. The young elves mocked and ridiculed one after another. I'm not worthy, but you guys are? Lu Ming smiled faintly with a hint of sarcasm in his tone. These young elves were obviously Ling Yuwei's admirers. Lu Ming's words made the young elves' faces turn ugly. However, they couldn't refute him for a moment. They more or less knew about Lu Ming's combat strength. Back then, many geniuses from various races had tried to find trouble with Lu Ming, but they had all been defeated by Lu Ming. Even the monstrous geniuses on the Quasi-Emperor Top 100 list, especially 9 Silkworm Prince, who was ranked 49th on the Quasi-Emperor Top 100 list, were no match for Lu Ming. Their abilities were far inferior to 9 Silkworm Princes. They really didn't have the confidence to refute Lu Ming's words. You're not qualified, yet you're talking about me. Get out of here as far as you can. Lu Ming waved his hand casually, as if he was chasing away a group of annoying flies. How dare you? Impudent. You're courting death. Angry roars rang out. Some of the young elves were so provoked that they jumped up, their faces full of anger. Oh, if you guys want to attack, then come. Feel free to attack. I'll take it all. Lu Ming said. Since he had agreed to help Ling Yuwei, he planned to be more high-profile and show off his talent. Only then would he be able to attract the attention of the elves and help Ling Yuwei. Moreover, he had already sensed that these young elves were all below the Divine Emperor realm. To be honest, he wasn't afraid of anyone below the Divine Emperor realm in the entire primitive universe. No matter how many came, he would beat them all. Lu Ming's words angered the young elves even more. Arrogant, too arrogant. He's so arrogant just because he has some strength. Let's attack together and teach him a lesson. That's right, let's attack together. Someone roared. Then, at least a dozen people stepped out. War bows appeared in their hands, and arrows were aimed at Lu Ming. Powerful auras locked onto Lu Ming. These young elves were all quasi-emperors and could be called geniuses. However, there was still a big gap between their combat strength and the geniuses on the quasi-emperor's top 100 list. Bush, bush, bush. More than a dozen arrows flew through the air toward Lu Ming, aiming at more than a dozen of Lu Ming's vital points. These people were also geniuses. Their combat strength was very strong, and each of them had the strength to challenge a Divine Emperor realm. With more than a dozen of them working together, they believed that even 9 Silkworm Prince would lose without a doubt. However, Lu Ming was no longer the Lu Ming who fought 9 Silkworm Prince. Compared to that time, Lu Ming was many times stronger. Now, facing 9 Silkworm Prince, Lu Ming could crush him with a single finger. Therefore, Lu Ming stood there motionless, allowing the arrows to approach him. It's done! Seeing that the arrows were about to hit Lu Ming, many young elves were overjoyed. It was as if they could already see the scene of Lu Ming being shot into a beehive. At this moment, Lu Ming moved. He reached out a hand and grabbed the air. All of a sudden, shadows of palms appeared in the air. It was as if Lu Ming suddenly had more than 10 hands and he caught all the arrows. In the next moment, the palm shadows disappeared, and there were more than a dozen arrows in Lu Ming's hand. How is this possible? The young elf's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. More than 10 top-notch quasi-emperor geniuses joined forces and unleashed their most powerful arrow. However, Lu Ming caught it so easily. How could his combat strength be so strong? Was this the strength of the geniuses on the quasi-emperor's top 100 list? Was the gap between them and the geniuses on the quasi-emperor's top 100 list so big? At this moment, they began to doubt their lives. I'll return them to you. Lu Ming waved his hand, and the dozen arrows in his hand flew back the way they came. But they were faster than when they came, and they shot toward their masters. The young elves' expressions changed drastically. They wanted to dodge, but it was too late. Their shoulders were pierced by the arrows. They retreated quickly and spat out mouthfuls of blood. Chapter 3894. The dozen or so elven prodigies who had attacked just now had their shoulders pierced by their own arrows. Obviously, Lu Ming had already shown mercy. If these arrows had pierced their vital points, it was unimaginable. The scene was silent. Now, do I have the qualifications to be worthy of the elven princess? Lu Ming said indifferently. No one said anything. If even Lu Ming wasn't worthy, then didn't that mean that they were even more unworthy? You do have some strength, but you are too arrogant. How can you be worthy of Princess Yue? At this moment, a cold voice sounded. In the distance, a figure stepped on the air. It was also a young elven man. His long hair was tied up high, and he was very handsome. He wore a silver robe and looked like an elegant young master. It's Hua Xing. Some elven youths exclaimed. Not everyone in the elven race had the surname Ling. In fact, only the elven royal family had the surname Ling. The other elves had all kinds of surnames. Hua Xing of the top 100 quasi-emperors. Lu Ming's heart stirred. He had specially learned about the top 100 quasi-emperors before, and he had long memorized the names on it. Above them was Hua Xing, ranked 23rd on the top 100 quasi-emperors list. He was a monstrous genius who was much stronger than 9 Silkworm Prince. There were a total of 2 elves on the top 100 quasi-emperors list. They were Ling Yue and Hua Xing. Therefore, Ling Yue and Hua Xing were also known as the 2 walls below the divine emperor of the elves. Naturally, Hua Xing admired Ling Yue a lot. He wholeheartedly wanted to marry Ling Yue as his wife and rise to the top. With his talent, he might be able to become an overlord in the future. Therefore, he did not allow others to touch Ling Yue. If Ling Yue and the angel race were to marry, he would be helpless. However, he did not put a mere Mu Yun in his eyes. He wanted to suppress Lu Ming and make Ling Yue look at him in a new light. That way, Ling Yue might not marry the angel race and be with him instead. Although the hope was not great, as long as there was a glimmer of hope, he would fight for it. Hua Xing's eyes shone as he stared at Lu Ming. Very quickly, he stopped 10,000 meters away from Lu Ming. Mu Yun, I know you defeated 9 Silkworm Prince, but 9 Silkworm Prince is only 49th on the list of quasi-emperors. He's far from being a true genius. Do you understand? Hua Xing said coldly. So you're saying that you're the true top genius? Lu Ming said with a faint smile. You could say that. Hua Xing nodded confidently. Oh, then what business does a top genius like you have with me? Lu Ming said. Challenge me. Fight me. Hua Xing said as his battle intent soared into the sky. Challenge me. The corners of Lu Ming's mouth curled up slightly and he said, It's the truth. I'm actually not interested in challenging trash like you, because there's no challenge at all. Nest, you're too arrogant. Who does he think he is? Someone in the top 10 of the list of quasi-emperors? How dare he look down on Hua Xing? He's really overestimating himself. I think he said that on purpose because he doesn't dare to accept the challenge. Lu Ming's words caused an uproar. Hua Xing's eyes were also burning with anger. He was actually looked down on by Lu Ming, which made him furious. In his anger, a cold, killing intent burst out. Of course. At this moment, Lu Ming's tone changed again and he said, "If you must challenge me, it's not impossible. How about we add some stakes?" "Stakes? What stakes?" Hua Xing narrowed his eyes and asked. "This is it." Lu Ming moved his hand, and the elven wood heart that Ling Yue had given him appeared. "Let's make a bet. I'll bet 100 of these elven wood hearts. If I lose, I'll give you 100. If you lose, you'll give me 100. How about it?" Lu Ming said. Ever since he discovered the benefits of this elven wood heart, Lu Ming had a plan. This time, he couldn't come to the elf clan for nothing. He had to collect a good batch of this elven wood heart. It would be of great use to his future cultivation. Since Hua Xing wanted to challenge him, how could Lu Ming miss this opportunity to collect the elven wood heart? 100 elven wood hearts. Hua Xing frowned. 100 elven wood hearts was not a small number. Even if he took it out, it would still hurt. "What is it? You don't have 100 elven wood hearts?" Lu Ming asked. "Of course I do. I'm just afraid that you don't. The elven wood heart is a treasure unique to my elf clan." Hua Xing said. "Ha, you don't have to worry about that. With my relationship with Yue, how could I not even take out 100 elven wood hearts?" Lu Ming grinned and called Ling Yue very intimately, causing the surrounding elf clan youths to almost vomit blood. Of course, the one who was the most angry was Hua Xing. His expression was rather ugly as he immediately agreed, "All right, I promise you. Let's fight. I'll bet 100 elven wood hearts." Just as Lu Ming and Hua Xing were about to fight, someone from the elf palace immediately reported the situation of Lu Ming, Hua Xing and the others to Ling Huashua and the others. "They can't fight." When Ling Yue heard the news, she immediately said, "Why can't we fight? Only this way can we test Mu Yun's level. I think it's pretty good. Could it be that you're afraid that Mu Yun will be severely injured by Hua Xing? Then he can only blame himself for not being skilled enough and not having enough talent. He's not worthy of you at all." Ling Yue's second uncle, Ling Huafeng, said. "No, I'm afraid that Mu Yun will accidentally injure Hua Xing. They aren't Mu Yun's match," Ling Yue explained. She was very clear about Lu Ming's strength. He was simply too strong, and wasn't something that Hua Xing and the others could contend against. The difference was too great. What she said was the truth. Once they made a move, she was really afraid that Lu Ming would make a mistake and heavily injure the geniuses of the elf clan. It would be bad if he attracted even more hostility. However, the others didn't believe him at all. Ling Huafeng, Ling Piao, and the others sneered and shook their heads. "Yue, if you're afraid that Mu Yun won't be able to win, then just say it. Why are you finding such an excuse? Seriously, what do you want me to say about you?" Ling Piao kept shaking her head, as if she had seen through Ling Yue's thoughts. Ling Huashua's face was also gloomy. It was obvious that he didn't believe Ling Yue's words. He couldn't understand why Ling Yue was usually so proud and arrogant. There weren't many men who could make her look up to him, so why was she protecting Mu Yun now? Could it be that Ling Yue had really fallen in love with Mu Yun? What was so special about Mu Yun? "Let's go take a look." Ling Huashua opened his mouth, and with a wave of his hand, a mysterious and unfathomable power spread out, causing ripples in the air. Then everyone in the hall disappeared, and in the next moment, they appeared above Lu Ming and the others. However, they were enveloped by a mysterious power. Lu Ming and the others below had no idea that someone was spying on them. Chapter 3895. However, just because Lu Ming and the others couldn't detect it didn't mean that no one else could. The battle character art in Lu Ming's Sea of Consciousness shrunk rapidly, as if it was about to disappear from time to time. The Bone Demon's aura was also extremely restrained, as if it had turned into a skeleton without any aura. "Bone Demon, what's wrong?" Lu Ming used his spiritual consciousness to detect the abnormality of the Bone Demon and the battle character art. "There's a terrifying expert spying on us from above. I can't be discovered. Take care of yourself." The Bone Demon replied, and then no longer had any aura. "A terrifying expert?" Lu Ming's pupils shrank slightly. He knew very well how high the Bone Demon's standards were. For the Bone Demon to call someone terrifying, it had to be extremely terrifying. Could it be a top expert of the elf race? Lu Ming's thoughts were in a whirl, but he pretended that he didn't know anything. He stood in the void, because he and Hua Xing were about to fight. Boom! In the void tens of thousands of meters away, Hua Xing's aura soared to the peak. His entire body was shrouded in a bright green light, and a huge warbow appeared. One could clearly see that his entire body's essence, qi, and spirit were all injected into the warbow, like small snakes. This is the Sky Splitter Bow technique. Hua Xing actually used the Sky Splitter Bow technique right off the bat. That's normal. Although Mu Yun is arrogant, he's still strong. After all, he defeated 9 Silkworm Prince before. Hua Xing doesn't dare to be careless. However, the Sky Splitter Bow art is extremely overbearing. Once the bow is drawn, it can split the sky. Its destructive power is shocking. Can Mu Yun block it? He should be able to block 1 arrow. The key is how many arrows can he block? He definitely can't block 3 arrows. You have to know that each arrow of the Sky Splitter Bow technique is stronger than the last. More and more youths from the elf race gathered around, and there was a lot of discussion. Many people who understood the power of Hua Xing's Sky Splitter Bow technique thought that Lu Ming wouldn't be able to block 3 arrows. Although Lu Ming had defeated 9 Silkworm Prince, 9 Silkworm Prince was only ranked 49th in the top 100 rankings. Hua Xing, on the other hand, was ranked 23rd. If Hua Xing fought 9 Silkworm Prince, Hua Xing would very likely defeat 9 Silkworm Prince with 1 arrow. Most of the elves used bows and arrows, and the power of bows and arrows was very strong. Once an arrow was shot, it could kill in 1 shot. Hua Xing's aura was getting stronger and stronger, but Lu Ming just stood there and watched quietly. Facing an archery expert, he actually didn't make the first move to interrupt his opponent's momentum. Instead, he just stood there motionless. This kind of behavior shows that he doesn't have the slightest bit of battle awareness. Can he even be considered a genius? High in the sky, Ling Piao sneered. I think it's just brute force. Ling Yuwei's cousin also shook his head and smiled. At this moment, Ling Yuwei didn't say anything. What was there to say? Just wait for Hua Xing to be tortured. Finally, Hua Xing's aura rose to its peak. An emerald green arrow pierced through the air, directly tearing a pitch-black passage in the sky. With astonishing speed, it shot towards Lu Ming. To be honest, its power was really strong. It was only slightly weaker than Ling Yuwei's full strength. In the entire desolate universe, there weren't many people below the Divine Emperor realm who could catch it. Of course, this was only for other quasi-emperors. To Lu Ming, this arrow was very weak. Lu Ming only stretched out a hand and grabbed at the air. With a buzz, the arrow shot by Hua Xing was caught by Lu Ming. Then, everyone was stunned. Their eyes were wide open and their mouths were even wider than a snake's. Stun. Hua Xing's arrow was actually caught by Lu Ming so casually. What was going on? Could it be that Hua Xing's arrow just now was just a test? He didn't use much strength at all and was seen through by Lu Ming? That couldn't be. The power of that arrow just now was extremely shocking and terrifying. Its power was extraordinary. Many people felt their minds go blank and couldn't react for a moment. High up in the sky, Ling Piao and her brother were also dumbfounded. They were very familiar with Hua Xing and knew how powerful he was. If their cultivation was also at the quasi-emperor level, they definitely wouldn't be able to catch his arrow. However, Lu Ming caught it so casually. How was this possible? Even Ling Huashua and Ling Huafeng's pupils shrank slightly, revealing a trace of surprise. Interesting. Ling Huashua whispered. This caused Ling Huafeng and Ling Piao's faces to darken slightly. At this moment, the most shocked person was Hua Xing himself. He had used almost all his strength in that arrow just now. His original intention was to kill Lu Ming with 1 arrow. However, he never expected that the arrow he shot with all his strength would be caught by Lu Ming so easily. This made him lose face. Damn it, I don't believe it. Sky Splitter Arrow, arrow piercing the heavens. Hua Xing shouted loudly and poured all of his divine power into the battle bow as if it was free. Buzz. Buzz. This time, 2 arrows flew out at the same time and shot toward Lu Ming. The 2 arrows, one after the other, broke through the void and went straight between Lu Ming's eyebrows. The power was more terrifying than before. However, Lu Ming's face was still calm. He stretched out his hand and the two arrows were caught in Lu Ming's hand like two toys. This time, Hua Xing didn't stop and shot out another arrow. This time, it was 3 arrows at the same time. As soon as the 3 arrows were shot out, Hua Xing shot out another arrow before they could get close to Lu Ming. This time, there were 4 arrows. There were a total of 7 arrows. The 7 arrows actually gathered in the air. When the 7 arrows gathered in one, their power was incredible. The Sky Splitter bow was really powerful. It was really worthy of its reputation. Even a cultivator of the second godly emperor layer wouldn't dare take that attack head-on. They would be severely injured. Being ranked 23rd in the list of the top 100 quasi-emperors wasn't just a title, it was real. After that, Lu Ming did the same thing as before. He stretched out his hand and grabbed the arrow. Buzz. The arrow was in Lu Ming's hand and it kept vibrating. However, when Lu Ming squeezed it, the arrow exploded with a bang, turning into energy and disappearing. No, that's impossible. Hua Xing couldn't believe it. He had already used all of his divine power. He had used all of his strength, but Lu Ming had still caught the arrow so easily. It was a huge blow to him. He couldn't accept it. Lu Ming wasn't a godly emperor. He was probably just below the godly emperor layer. How could the gap between them be so big? On the side, the other young men were dumbstruck. They couldn't say anything. Ling Piao and her brother were also dumbstruck. They didn't say anything for a long time. Ling Huashua and Ling Huafeng were also astonished. Lu Ming's strength had exceeded their expectations. Only Ling Yuwei's expression remained calm. From the beginning to the end, it hadn't changed at all, because all of this was within her expectations. Chapter 3896. Ling Yuwei's expression remained calm. She had already expected this scene. As a quasi-emperor, how could Hua Xing be a match for Lu Ming? The difference between them was too great. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Die for me. Being watched by so many people, Hua Xing felt that he had lost all his face. His face flushed red and he went completely berserk. The divine power in his body burned fiercely and then crazily poured into the battle bow. He wanted to condense a powerful arrow and make a final struggle. However, Lu Ming did not plan to give him a chance to continue attacking. Lu Ming took a step forward and activated the Great Divine Wind technique. With a few flashes, his figure appeared in front of Hua Xing and then he struck out with his palm. With a palm strike, the wind and clouds changed. A huge palm was formed and pressed down on Hua Xing. Bang! The arrow that Hua Xing had just condensed directly collapsed. Hua Xing was sent flying tens of thousands of meters away by Lu Ming's slap. He vomited large mouthfuls of blood. If it weren't for the others catching him, he wouldn't even be able to maintain his position in the air. Defeated, Hua Xing had lost, and he had lost miserably. In Lu Ming's hands, he was like a baby, unable to withstand a single blow. You shouted very loudly. So that's all you have? Lu Ming shook his head and sighed, looking very disappointed. Hua Xing was so angry that he vomited blood again. Earlier on, he was still acting all high and mighty, as if he was invincible, as if he could send Lu Ming flying with one slap. In the end, he was the one who was sent flying with one slap. Embarrassing, it was too embarrassing. He wished he could find a hole in the ground and hide in it. Don't worry about vomiting blood. Hurry up and give me the 100 elven wood hearts you owe me. Lu Ming continued. Hua Xing continued to vomit blood. He remembered that not only had he lost, but he also had to give Lu Ming 100 elven wood hearts. Hua Xing felt uncomfortable, incomparably uncomfortable. His heart ached so much that it felt like it was about to split open. If you're a man, then don't be so wishy-washy. If you're willing to bet, then accept your loss. Hurry up and hand over the elven wood heart. Lu Ming urged. Hua Xing was really reluctant and hesitated. However, with so many people watching, if he did not hand it over, it would be even more embarrassing. In the future, he would not be able to raise his head in the elven race. After dawdling for a while, Hua Xing finally took out a storage ring and threw it to Lu Ming. His heart ached so much that it was bleeding. Mu Yun, just you wait. After tossing the storage ring to Mu Yun, Hua Xing turned around and left, disappearing without a trace in the blink of an eye. Lu Ming quickly took out the storage ring and scanned it with his spiritual sense. A smile appeared on his face. In the storage ring, there were 100 elvenwood cores neatly arranged. All of them were genuine goods. This was a good thing. Lu Ming happily put it away. Is there anyone else who wants to make a bet? It's still the elven tree heart. How about it? Lu Ming looked around and scanned the elves one by one. His eyes were filled with anticipation. It was simply too worth it to be able to obtain so many elven tree hearts just by fighting. Lu Ming suddenly looked forward to someone challenging him. Unfortunately, he was disappointed. All the elves avoided his gaze, not daring to look at him. What a joke! Hua Xing was a monstrous genius ranked 23rd on the Quasi-Emperor Top 100 list. At the Quasi-Emperor level, he was already standing at the peak of the universe. However, he was still defeated so miserably by Lu Ming. Who would dare to go up? Wouldn't that be looking for a beating? Who would be so bored as to seek a beating? Unless it was a genius above the Divine Emperor level. However, it would be embarrassing for a genius above the Divine Emperor level to deal with a Quasi-Emperor. This guy, in the sky, Ling Yue was speechless. She had promised to help Lu Ming collect a batch of elven tree hearts. She hadn't even started yet, but Lu Ming had already started collecting them himself. This greedy guy. Ling Yue secretly despised him in her heart, but her face was full of smiles. She specially looked at Ling Piao and the others and said, I've said it before, Hua Xing isn't a match for Lu Ming. I was afraid that Mu Yun would injure Hua Xing, but you guys didn't believe me. Do you see it now? Ling Piao and her sister had ugly expressions on their faces as they remained silent. His strength is not bad, but unfortunately, his cultivation is too low. He's only a quasi-emperor. His future is unknown. Ling Huafeng shook his head slightly. Second uncle, do you think that with Mu Yun's talent, the bottleneck of the Divine Emperor realm can trap him? Ling Yue said. That's hard to say. Without a breakthrough, everything is possible. In history, there have been countless geniuses who were astonishingly talented, but in the end, they were still trapped in the quasi-emperor realm and were unable to break through. In the end, they died of depression. Moreover, even if he can break through to the Divine Emperor realm, so what? Can he be compared to the geniuses of the angel race? Ling Huafeng smiled. I believe that Mu Yun won't be weaker than anyone. Ling Yue said. Yue, you're too biased towards Mu Yun. The universe is vast, and there are countless geniuses. Who can claim to be number one? Moreover, no matter how talented he is, what can he do? Can he be compared to the entire angel race? He's just a disciple of a small Fengdu sword sect in the Iron Sea Star Field group. He can't be compared to the angel race at all. Yue, you have to think about the overall situation. Ling Huafeng said. If you want to curry favor with the angel race, go do it yourself. Don't drag me into it. Ling Yue said with a cold face. You little girl, big brother, you have to take care of Yue. Ling Huafeng glared at her and finally looked at Ling Huashua. During this process, Ling Huashua didn't say anything. No one knew what he was thinking. At this moment, he waved his hand and said, All right, all of you stop talking. Let's go back first. With a wave of his hand, everyone returned to the fairy palace. Boy, you go back and rest first. Also, all of you can disperse together. I'm going to cultivate. After returning to the fairy palace, Ling Huashua waved his hand. Ling Yue, Ling Huafeng, and the others took their leave one after another. After Ling Yue left, she went straight to the resource temple of the elves, intending to retrieve a batch of elvenwood hearts for Lu Ming. As for Ling Huafeng, Ling Piao, and the father and daughter pair, they returned to their residence. No, I definitely can't let Ling Yue and Mu Yun walk together. It wasn't easy for me to get on the angel race's path. I definitely can't let it end like this. As soon as she returned to her residence, Ling Piao immediately cried out. Her expression was extremely sinister and ugly, completely different from before. Others might not know, but they knew very well that the reason why Ling Yue had a marriage alliance with the angel race was because she was the one who pulled the strings. By chance, she got to know that monstrous genius of the angel race. After knowing that he liked beauties, She introduced Ling Yue to him. The monstrous genius of the angel race fell in love with Ling Yue the moment he saw her. He immediately sent someone to the elf race, saying that he wanted to marry Ling Yue and marry her. Originally, Ling Huashua didn't want to agree, but after Ling Huafeng's lobbying and analyzing the pros and cons, Ling Huashua finally agreed. Chapter 3897. The marriage with the Angel clan had to succeed. This was because once she succeeded, Ling Piao would be able to connect with the Angel clan. The Angel clan had a very good relationship with the Heavenly Palace. Once they were connected, their family would rise to the top in the future. There would be endless benefits. Therefore, Ling Yue had to marry the genius of the Angel clan. She absolutely could not be destroyed by others. As for the genius of the Angel clan, they couldn't be bothered to care whether Ling Yue would be happy or not if she married him. What did it have to do with them whether Ling Yue was happy or not? As long as they were happy, it was fine. I didn't expect that Mu Yun's talent to be so high. Even Hua Xing was easily defeated. I think Ling Huashua is already hesitating. Ling Huafeng also said with a gloomy face. We can't go on like this. We must suppress that brat Mu Yun and even get rid of him. Ling Piao's eyes flashed with cold killing intent. No one could stop her future. If there was, she would make the other party disappear forever. This is the Elf Palace. No one can make a move here without being discovered. As long as Mu Yun lives here, we can't send anyone to make a move. Ling Huafeng said. Then let's just ignore it. When that old fellow Ling Huashua changes his mind, it'll be troublesome. Ling Piao said. She didn't have the slightest respect for Ling Huashua. Don't worry, I already have an idea. Ling Huafeng smiled. Dad, you have an idea. What idea? Ling Piao asked quickly. Didn't Mu Yun defeat Hua Xing? He even humiliated him in public. How could Hua Xing be willing to accept such humiliation? And Hua Xing's big brother, Hua Tian, is a monstrous genius of the Divine Emperor realm. As long as we encourage him, what do you think Hua Tian will do? Ling Huafeng said with a smile, looking like a cunning old fox. That's right. Why didn't I think of that? Father is wise. Ling Piao's eyes lit up. Of course, we can't put all our hopes on Hua Tian. If Hua Tian is no match for him, I still have a plan. Ling Huafeng said. Hua Tian will be defeated? Hua Tian is a monstrous genius of the first layer of the Divine Emperor realm. Although he wasn't as strong as the current Hua Xing when he was at the Quasi-Emperor realm, he wasn't too far away. Ling Piao and her brother both had looks of disbelief on their faces. There was a huge gap between the Divine Emperor realm and the Quasi-Emperor realm. Previously, there was a huge gap between them that was difficult to cross. The primitive universe was extremely vast. There were countless races and races. The number of living beings was like the sand of the Ganges, endless. The number of geniuses was also endless. Among the countless heavenly legends, there were less than 1,000 people in the untainted universe who were able to fight against divine emperors at the level of Quasi-Emperor. 1,000 might seem like a lot, but in the context of the Your Wild's universe, it was a very small number. There were 10,000 powerful races on the great desolate 10,000 races roll. But he could only fight against ordinary cultivators of the first godly emperor layer. As for Hua Tian, he was already a cultivator of the first godly emperor layer. Now that he had broken through to the first godly emperor layer, his fighting abilities were even more astonishing. Who could defeat a cultivator of the first godly emperor layer? They couldn't believe it. I don't believe that Mu Yun can defeat Hua Tian either. However, you have to remember that you have to be prepared for all eventualities. Ling Huafeng said, What is father's second plan? Ling Piao asked. It's simple. The holy seed test of the fairy clan is about to begin. If Hua Tian can't defeat Mu Yun, I will suggest to Ling Huashua that Mu Yun should participate in the holy seed test to prove his talent. At that time, he will not only have to face the geniuses of the fairy clan, but also the dangers of the holy seed test. Ling Huafeng said, Wonderful, wonderful. Father, you're the smartest. Ling Piao and Ling Piao's eyes lit up. After Hua Xing left, no one else challenged Lu Ming. Lu Ming was disappointed. He returned to the palace and the young people of the fairy clan also left. However, news of the recent battle spread like wildfire throughout the elf tribe. When Lu Ming returned to the palace, he took out a piece of spirit wood core and absorbed it. The fairy wood core contained a huge amount of life essence and was very pure. It was easy to absorb and was a rare treasure. If an ordinary person swallowed a fairy wood core, they would immediately be reborn. Not only would they be immune to diseases and poisons, but they would also have a lifespan of 10,000 years. Lu Ming held the fairy wood core in his hand. His cells trembled slightly and a powerful suction force burst out. The life essence in the fairy wood core was quickly absorbed by Lu Ming. It rushed into each of his cells and turned into Lu Ming's potential. After absorbing the fairy wood core, Lu Ming's potential increased by 1%. Don't underestimate this 1% because Lu Ming's cultivation base was much deeper than before. The amount of energy needed to increase one's potential by 1% was already very shocking. An ordinary divine emperor level herb might not even be able to increase one's potential by 1%. Lu Ming was quite satisfied. After absorbing one, he took out another one and started to absorb it. One after another. In a short day, 80 of the 100 fairy wood cores that Lu Ming had won had been absorbed and refined. This way, the potential stored in Lu Ming's cells had reached 100%. Of course, not all of this 100% potential would be able to help Lu Ming break through to the Divine Emperor realm. It was definitely not enough. He would probably need to do it many times before he could break through to the Divine Emperor realm. I need to find a place to help me develop my potential. However, this place is not suitable. I should first cultivate the secret technique. After settling Ling Yue's matter, I'll find a place to cultivate properly. Lu Ming pondered. Just as he was thinking, Ling Yue came to find him. Mu Yun, this is for you. Ling Yue threw a storage ring to Lu Ming. Lu Ming received it and scanned it with his spiritual sense. He discovered that there were 1,000 fairy wood cores neatly arranged inside. There are 1,000 fairy wood cores inside. This is the largest amount of fairy wood cores that I can gather within my power. It should be able to help you break through to the Divine Emperor realm, right? Ling Yue said. Thank you. Lu Ming cupped his fists and put it away. He wasn't sure if 1,000 fairy wood cores could help him break through to the Divine Emperor realm, but without a doubt, this was an astonishing amount of wealth. It would be of great help to Lu Ming. You should cultivate well and break through to the Divine Emperor realm as soon as possible. My second uncle and the others will have nothing to say. My lifelong happiness will all be in your hands. Ling Yue said. Her beautiful eyes stared at Lu Ming with splendor. Lu Ming quickly coughed a few times. Why did Ling Yue's words sound so profound? Then let's put it this way. I'm going into seclusion to cultivate. Lu Ming quickly found a reason to chase Ling Yue away. Chapter 3898. After Ling Yue left, Lu Ming began to comprehend the Great God Wind technique. However, he was interrupted after a few hours of cultivation. This was because an arrow suddenly appeared above the palace. The arrow pierced through the air and shot toward Lu Ming's head at an alarming speed. It was astonishingly fast. This was a sure kill arrow. Someone wanted to kill Lu Ming. There was actually someone so bold in the elf palace that dared to kill him. At the critical moment, Lu Ming shifted his body 10 meters away, avoiding the attack of the arrow. Following which, Lu Ming's figure soared into the sky and into the sky. In the air, there was a young man who looked like he wasn't even 30 years old yet. He looked extraordinarily handsome, and his appearance was somewhat similar to Hua Xing's. Who is Hua Xing to you? Lu Ming asked directly. I'm Hua Xing's elder brother, Hua Tian. The young man said coldly, not hiding anything. Lu Ming knew why the other party was here. Obviously, he was here to stand up for Hua Xing. After hitting the small one, the big one came. With the cultivation of the Divine Emperor realm, you actually sneak attacked a quasi-emperor. Lu Ming laughed contemptuously. You humiliated my brother in public. You deserve to die. After I kill you, I will naturally go to His Majesty to ask for punishment. Hua Tian said coldly, his killing intent extremely cold. At this moment, in Ling Huafeng's palace, Ling Huafeng and his daughter were looking through a mirror. The mirror clearly showed the situation of Lu Ming and Hua Tian. This time, I promised Hua Tian a great reward and promised him that after killing Mu Yun, I would protect him. He can attack as much as he wants. Let's see how Mu Yun will survive. Ling Piao sneered. In order to let Hua Tian attack in peace, she had paid a great price. In Lu Ming's residence, a great battle was about to break out. Boom! The aura on Hua Tian's body skyrocketed like smoke, forming a huge pressure that surged towards Lu Ming. Facing Hua Tian, Lu Ming didn't dare to be careless. The battle character's secret art instantly increased his battle power by 5 times. At the same time, every single cell in Zhang Xian's body was trembling as the taboo energy coursed through his body. The gravity orb buzzed furiously, ready to strike at any moment. Hua Tian wasn't an ordinary cultivator of the first godly emperor layer. Lu Ming could crush ordinary cultivators of the first godly emperor layer with one finger. Hua Tian was also a monstrous genius. He was very strong. When he was at the quasi-emperor realm, he was able to fight across realms. Although he hadn't made a move yet, he was already giving Lu Ming a lot of pressure. Heaven splitter bow. Hua Tian let out a long whistle as he knocked an arrow on his bow. A terrifying arrow condensed and flew towards Lu Ming. This was his source secret technique. It was exactly the same as Hua Xing's, but its power was many times stronger than Hua Xing's. Even Lu Ming felt a sense of crisis. Boom! Lu Ming used the Great Destruction technique and threw a punch. A terrifying fist energy streaked across the sky and collided with the arrow. The sky shook violently as a ferocious fissure appeared. A terrifying qi swept in all directions. Some of the qi moved towards the ancient trees on the ground. However, the ancient trees were releasing a green light. When the qi landed on the green light, it disappeared without a trace. It didn't cause the slightest ripple. A violent explosion sounded. Lu Ming's silhouette floated backwards. The arrow also broke apart and turned into energy. What? Surprisingly, he blocked it. Ling Piao and the others, who were watching secretly, frowned. They couldn't believe it. Lu Ming had surprisingly blocked Hua Tian's arrow. What kind of fighting strength was that? How could he be so strong? They were astonished. Hua Tian himself was also deeply shocked. He was very confident in his own strength. He had never thought that a quasi-emperor could block his arrow. How was that possible? I don't believe it. Kill. Hua Tian shouted as he continued to draw his bow. His divine power surged and turned into a divine arrow that shot towards Lu Ming. However, Lu Ming wouldn't just stand there and let Hua Tian beat him. Closing the distance between them was the best way to deal with a long-range attacker. Swoosh! Lu Ming used the Great Godly Wind technique and closed the distance between him and Hua Tian in a flash. Hua Tian quickly retreated, trying to open the distance between him and Lu Ming. Unfortunately, after using the Great Godly Wind technique, Lu Ming's speed was completely above Hua Tian's. In just a few flashes, Lu Ming appeared not far from Hua Tian and punched out continuously. The terrifying fist energy contained the power of the Great Godly Wind technique and the Great Destruction technique. It pierced through the sky and swept towards Hua Tian. At such a close distance, Hua Tian's arrow couldn't be used to its fullest potential. Do you think that you can fight me by closing the distance? Naive. Kill. Hua Tian shouted as he pulled his longbow back. Buzz, 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 a series of buzzing sounds could be heard. Every time there was a buzzing sound, an arrow would shoot out. In an instant, dozens of buzzing sounds could be heard as dozens of arrows shot towards Lu Ming. More importantly, these arrows could turn and were extremely agile. They were like flying swords that Hua Tian used his mind to brush past and shoot towards Lu Ming. Boom, boom, boom. Some of these arrows collided with Lu Ming's fist energy and blocked Lu Ming's attack, while others continued to shoot towards Lu Ming. Lu Ming continued to use the Great Godly Wind technique to dodge the arrows. He continued to close the distance between him and Hua Tian. His fist energy was like a rainbow that crushed the void. Everything in its path was destroyed. Violent energy surged toward Hua Tian with the force of toppling mountains and seas. Hua Tian continued to draw his bow and barely blocked Lu Ming's fist energy, but he was forced to retreat. Buzz. At this moment, A sword gleam suddenly appeared in Hua Tian's hand. The sword gleam expanded and slashed toward Lu Ming, forcefully slicing Lu Ming's fist force apart. Other people think that I'm the best at archery, but I'll tell you now that my sword skills are even better than archery," shouted Hua Tian coldly. His sword light was like a rainbow as it slashed towards Lu Ming. At the same time, he flicked his fingers continuously and several arrows were shot toward Lu Ming. It was a two-pronged attack. To be honest, Hua Tian was really strong. Ordinary cultivators of the first godly emperor layer couldn't withstand a single blow from him. However, there was still a gap between him and Ling Yue at the same level. Therefore, even in the face of such a situation, Lu Ming's expression remained calm. 6 times, Lu Ming muttered to himself. The battle incantation had finally been successfully triggered and he threw a punch. That punch was unprecedentedly powerful. Everything in its path turned into nothingness. The arrows collapsed one after another. The dazzling sword light exploded like tofu and a violent energy crashed onto Hua Tian's body. Hua Tian gave a horrible shriek and was pushed back, coughing up blood. Swoosh! Lu Ming's figure appeared above Hua Tian's head and he stepped on him. Hua Tian gave a horrible shriek as his body fell down like a meteor. He crashed into an ancient tree. The ancient tree only shook a little, but nothing happened to it. As for Hua Tian, he coughed up mouthfuls of blood. He didn't know how many of his bones were broken, but his qi was extremely weak. Chapter 3899. Hua Tian was severely injured by Lu Ming. He was defeated and his aura was weak. His expression was very ugly, and his eyes were still filled with disbelief. He had never thought that he would be defeated by a quasi-emperor so thoroughly. Moreover, this quasi-emperor was only from an ordinary universe-level force. He was not from the top 10 races or the Heavenly Palace. If they were from the top 10 clans or geniuses of the Heavenly Palace, he would feel better. But at this moment, he had suffered a huge blow. At this moment, Ling Piao and the others who were watching in the dark were also dumbfounded. They were completely speechless. Get lost. Lu Ming stood high in the sky, looking down at Hua Tian with a hint of disdain. He had no intention of killing Hua Tian. If they were outside, he would definitely get rid of someone like Hua Tian who wanted to kill him. However, this was the elf race after all. Moreover, it was in the elf palace. He dared to bet that there were many powerful existences watching from the dark. He could defeat Hua Tian, but if he really wanted to kill Hua Tian, there would probably be an expert who would immediately save Hua Tian. He couldn't kill Hua Tian at all. Hua Tian glared at Lu Ming hatefully, then turned around and left. I wonder if everyone is satisfied with my strength? Lu Ming smiled faintly at the void. He knew that many people would hear his words. This was indeed the case. Not only did Ling Huafeng and his daughter hear it, but Ling Huashua also heard it. He also used a special method to see the scene just now. It's really rare for a quasi-emperor to have such combat strength. Could it be that father is right and I'm wrong? Ling Huashua whispered. With Lu Ming's talent, he was completely worthy of Ling Yue. It was completely enough to be his son-in-law. And just as Ling Yue said, with Lu Ming's talent, would he be trapped by the bottleneck of the divine emperor realm? Ordinary monstrous geniuses might be trapped by such a bottleneck, but a genius like Lu Ming, who could no longer be measured by common sense, would be trapped? He himself didn't believe it. Lu Ming's future was limitless. The divine emperor realm was definitely not his final destination. Stepping into a higher realm was something that was set in stone. However, the temptation of the angels was too great. Once he married the angels, he would have a much greater say in the primitive universe. It would also play a huge role in the future development of the elves. On one side was his daughter's happiness, and on the other was the future development of the elven race. How should he choose? Ling Huashua frowned deeply. At this moment, a figure floated in. It was Ling Yue. As soon as the battle between Lu Ming and Hua Tian ended, Ling Yue received the news and immediately rushed over to meet Ling Huashua. Father, I believe you've seen Mu Yun's strength. It's rare. Few people in the entire primitive universe can match him. Such a genius is worthy of your daughter. When he grows up in the future, He'll bring great benefits to the elf clan. Therefore, father, please cancel the marriage with the angel clan. Ling Yue said. Hua Tian's challenge came at the perfect time to prove Lu Ming's strength. This, Ling Huashua's frown deepened. For a moment, it was hard for him to make a decision. Big brother. At this moment, a voice rang out as Ling Huafeng floated in. For people like Ling Yue and Ling Huafeng, if they wanted to meet Ling Huashua, they naturally didn't need to report and could directly enter. Big brother, I also know about the situation just now. I feel that although Mu Yun's talent is astonishing and in terms of talent, he is indeed worthy of Yue, but he is still far from being as useful as the angel clan to our clan. If he wants to marry Yue, he has to prove that he is even more valuable. Ling Huafeng said. Second uncle, is this not enough? How else do you want to prove it? Don't go too far. Ling Yue was a little angry as she glared at Ling Huafeng. Impudent! How dare you talk to your second uncle like that? Ling Huashua shouted softly, then stared at Ling Huafeng and said, Second brother, what do you suggest? The Holy Seed Assessment is about to begin. Let Mu Yun participate in the Holy Seed Assessment. As long as he can bring out 12 high-level elven tree seeds, it will prove that his talent is indeed unparalleled. Only then will we risk offending the angel clan and let him marry Yue. Ling Huafeng said. What? To participate in the Holy Seed Assessment and bring out 12 high-level elven tree seeds? That's impossible. Even the top geniuses of our elf clan can't do it with the protection of the elf bloodline. Mu Yun is an outsider. Without the protection of the elf bloodline, he will be in even more danger in the ancestral land. How can he obtain 12 high-level elven tree seeds? I don't agree to this. Ling Yue immediately cried out, her face full of anger. She knew that Lu Ming's talent was unparalleled, his combat strength was powerful, he had many trump cards, and he even controlled several great killing weapons. However, in the elf clan's holy land, one couldn't rely on external objects. In other words, those great killing weapons couldn't be used. Not only that, everyone who entered the elf clan's ancestral land would be suppressed, and their strength would be greatly reduced. Moreover, the elf clan's ancestral land contained a large number of evil spirits. These evil spirits were all experts of various races who had been killed by the elf clan when they were alive. They were all extremely vicious and evil people. After these creatures died, they turned into evil spirits and would attack other creatures who entered the elf clan's ancestral land. However, because these evil spirits were very feared by the elf clan, as long as they had the bloodline of the elf clan, not many evil spirits would dare to attack them. Only some particularly ferocious evil spirits would attack the elf clan. However, if non-elves entered, they would be attacked crazily by these evil spirits. At that time, there would be a large number of elf clan geniuses entering the ancestral land. Among them, there was no lack of geniuses who had already broken through to the divine emperor realm. Moreover, it was obvious that these elf clan geniuses would most likely attack Lu Ming because of Ling Yue. Those were all divine emperor realm geniuses. With so many unfavorable factors added together, if Lu Ming were to enter the ancestral land, it would be extremely dangerous. Not to mention, he still had to obtain 12 high-level elf tree species. That would be even more difficult, countless times more difficult. Ling Huafeng's intentions were sinister, and his heart was punishable. She naturally had to oppose it. Mu Yun has no background or backing. If he wants to compare with the angel clan, he can only rely on himself. If he can't display talent, strength, and potential that far surpasses the other geniuses, how can we choose him? Ling Huafeng advised earnestly. But this is too much. Ling Yue still wanted to fight, but was stopped by Ling Huashua. Your second uncle is right. Unless Mu Yun can display extraordinary abilities, only then can I truly make a decision. Ling Huashua said. But, alright, don't say any more. This matter is settled. If Mu Yun doesn't agree, then we can only let him leave the elf clan. Ling Huashua pressed down with his hand, leaving no room for doubt. Chapter 3900. Ling Huashua said to Ling Yue in an unquestionable tone, causing Ling Yue's expression to turn ugly. She understood her royal father. Once he made a decision, no one could change it, including her. All right, the Holy Seed examination will begin in 3 months. Go and inform Mu Yun so that he can prepare early. If he doesn't agree, then he can leave the elf race. Your engagement with him can also be completely annulled. Ling Huashua said. Ling Yue left the elf palace with an ugly expression and found Lu Ming. Holy Seed examination? Lu Ming was slightly stunned. He thought to himself that it was true that this matter would not be resolved so easily. There was another Holy Seed assessment. Mu Yun, thank you for coming to the elf race to help me. However, let's forget about this matter. You can leave the elf race. From now on, the two of us will have nothing to do with each other. Ling Yue gritted her teeth, her eyes slightly red. Originally, Lu Ming should have been happy when he heard this news, but at this moment, he didn't want to leave. Is the Holy Seed examination very dangerous? Lu Ming asked, guessing Ling Yue's thoughts. Yes, it's very dangerous. The Holy Seed examination requires one to enter one of the ancestral lands of the elf race. In the distant past, that ancestral land was a place that suppressed the great enemies of the elf race and killed countless evil existences. However, that place is also a place that nurtures the elf tree species. The elf tree is the key to the development of the elf race. The more elf tree species there are, the more elf trees they can grow, and the more powerful the elf race will be. Originally, in the distant past, there were quite a few places where the elf race nurtured the elf tree species. However, after countless years of turmoil, many of the places that nurtured the elf tree species were destroyed. Currently, there are only 2 places where the elf race still retains the elf tree species. One of them is in this ancestral land. This ancestral land is also the most important place. Legend has it that it contains the Holy Seed. The Holy Seed can grow the legendary elven sacred tree. It's the ultimate treasure of the elven tribe. Now, the elven sacred tree no longer exists in the elven tribe. The only elven sacred tree was destroyed in the last turmoil. Therefore, the goal of every test is to enter the ancestral land and obtain the elven tree seed. However, the ancestral land is very dangerous. Ling Yue explained in detail, as well as how dangerous the ancestral land was. Why do we have to let young people go in? Can't the elves just send their experts in? Lu Ming asked curiously. Ling Yue shook her head and said, a long time ago, this ancestral land was set up with layers of restrictions by the ancestors of the elves. Only the younger generation can enter. Because it contains evil spirits, the purpose of the fairy race's ancestor was to use it to train the younger generation of the fairy race. But now, the fairy race's powerhouses can't even go in. They can only send a group of young geniuses in to search for fairy tree seeds every once in a while. I see. Lu Ming nodded. It was likely that in the distant past, when the elves were at their peak, there was no lack of fairy tree seeds. Therefore, that ancestral land was built as a place to train young people, and the older ones were not allowed to enter. Who would have thought that now, the elves were in a serious shortage of fairy tree seeds? They couldn't even enter the ancestral land to search for fairy tree seeds, so they could only send young people in. It could be considered a test for the younger generation. I want to know, is there a reward for obtaining the fairy tree seed? Lu Ming asked. At this time, you're still thinking about rewards? Do you really want to participate? Ling Yue glared at him. Is there anything impossible about it? Let's see if the benefits are enough. Lu Ming said with a smile. There will definitely be a reward. The fairy tree seed is divided into low level, middle level, and high level. Of course, at the top, there is also the Holy Seed. Obtained a low-level fairy tree seed as a reward, obtained a mid-level fairy tree seed as a reward, obtained 100 fairy tree hearts as a reward, obtained a high-level fairy tree seed as a reward, obtained 1,000 fairy tree hearts, Ling Yue explained. Lu Ming's eyes became incomparably bright. The reward was simply too generous. Moreover, he was too tempted by the fairy tree heart. It was only the first step for him to step into the divine emperor realm, but the amount of resources he had consumed was already terrifying. After stepping into the divine emperor realm, the amount of resources he would consume would be even more terrifying. The spiritwood heart was a treasure with very pure life essence. It was easy to absorb and refine it. Lu Ming liked it very much. Naturally, the more such treasures there were, the better. The mission your royal father gave me was to obtain 12 high-level fairy tree seeds. As long as I complete it, wouldn't I be rewarded with 12,000 fairy tree hearts? The more Lu Ming spoke, the brighter his eyes became. One had to know that Ling Yue had only managed to get him 1,000 fairy tree hearts. As long as he obtained a high-level fairy tree seed, he would be able to obtain 1,000 fairy tree hearts. How could this not move Lu Ming's heart? Yes, the fairy tree seed is much more valuable than the fairy tree heart. Every fairy tree can nurture a lot of fairy tree hearts, but in the ancestral land, it's very difficult to obtain the fairy tree seed. The ancestral land is divided into a total of 9 levels. The first 3 levels can only nurture low-level fairy tree seeds. Of course, the danger is relatively small. The middle 3 levels have low-level fairy tree seeds and mid-level fairy tree seeds, but relatively speaking, they are much more dangerous. As for the high-level fairy tree seeds, they can only be found after the 7th level. There are fewer on the 7th level, and the further one goes, the more there are, but the more dangerous it is. The 7th level of the ancestral land is extremely dangerous. Every time, there will be powerful geniuses of the fairy clan falling. As for you, you are a human. Without the protection of the fairy clan's bloodline, you will be in even more danger. Not to mention obtaining 12 high-level fairy tree seeds, I'm afraid you won't even be able to enter the 7th level. This is an impossible mission, so you should leave. Ling Yue said, shaking her head and sighing. Leave? Why should I leave? With such a generous reward, wouldn't it be a pity if I didn't participate? Lu Ming laughed. Now, even if the fairy clan chased him away, he wouldn't leave. Even if the fairy clan's ancestral land was dangerous, Lu Ming was still somewhat confident. At the very least, he was still confident in protecting himself. Faced with such an opportunity, how could he be willing to give it a try? You really want to participate? Ling Yue stared at him, but there was still some joy in the depths of her eyes. Could it be that Lu Ming was doing this for her? Of course, for the fairy tree heart, I'll go all out. Lu Ming clenched his fists, his eyes shining. Humph, Ling Yue snorted coldly. The matter was settled. Lu Ming accepted the mission and agreed to enter the fairy clan's ancestral land for the examination. There were still 3 months left. Although 3 months was short, it couldn't be wasted. Lu Ming asked Ling Yue about a good place and planned to cultivate there. Chapter 3901. The Absolute Wind Cultivation Ground was a famous cultivation ground in the elf tribe. This place was filled with violent astral winds that had destructive power. Many of the elf tribe's geniuses liked to come here to cultivate their archery skills. The astral winds here were violent. Being able to hit the target 100% of the time and penetrate the astral winds with great power showed that one's archery skills were very good. Using the astral winds to cultivate one's archery skills was very effective. Lu Ming came here to cultivate the Great Divine Wind technique. After such a long time of cultivation, Lu Ming felt that the Great Divine Wind technique had reached a bottleneck. If he took another step, he would reach the minor accomplishment realm and its power would increase tremendously. Once the Great Divine Wind technique reached the minor accomplishment realm, Lu Ming's strength would increase again and he would be more confident in his trip to the elf tribe's ancestral land. After all, with only 3 months, it was almost impossible for him to make a breakthrough in his cultivation. Hoo! In front of him, the wind whistled and was extremely terrifying. Even the space was shattered and torn apart by the wind. The space fragments were mixed with the wind and its power was even more terrifying. Lu Ming rushed in without hesitation. As soon as he rushed into the range of the astral winds, the terrifying astral winds swept towards Lu Ming. Lu Ming used the Great Divine Wind technique. The astral winds parted on both sides of Lu Ming before they could touch him. Lu Ming was not affected at all. The astral winds here are still too weak. Lu Ming shook his head. The astral winds were too weak and had no effect on Lu Ming's cultivation. Lu Ming continued to step forward and went deeper. The deeper he went, the stronger the astral winds were. Lu Ming kept moving forward and soon he was hundreds of thousands of miles away. At this point, the astral winds were extremely terrifying. It carried with it spatial fragments and whistled as if it could tear everything apart. Here, Lu Ming saw a few arrow lights whizzing past, breaking through the astral winds and flying into the distance. Two geniuses of the elf clan were cultivating. They had both reached the divine emperor realm. The two elven prodigies also saw Lu Ming and were curious. This was the elves' place of cultivation. Very few outsiders would come here, unless they were from a race that was on good terms with the elves. They curiously sized up Lu Ming, but Lu Ming ignored them and continued to walk forward, quickly leaving this place. Next, Lu Ming encountered several groups of elites from the elf clan. Almost all of them were at the divine emperor realm. Lu Ming sighed inwardly. The elf clan was indeed a powerful clan. They had a strong foundation and many elites. There were even quite a number of elites at the divine emperor realm. No wonder not many people really cared about the top 100 quasi-emperors list. After all, only those who had reached the god-emperor realm could be considered as outstanding talents in the primitive universe. After a short time, Lu Ming traveled 1,000,000 li. Finally, Lu Ming was satisfied with the strength of the astral winds. Lu Ming was cultivating there, but after a short time, Lu Ming suddenly opened his eyes and looked in a certain direction. Two people were coming from that direction. They were two young geniuses of the elf clan, a man and a woman. The man was handsome and the woman was beautiful. They both released a terrifying qi. Surprisingly, the astral winds around them couldn't do anything to them. Third godly emperor layer. Lu Ming's pupils shrank slightly. At such a young age, they had already broken through to the third godly emperor layer. Those two were probably the strongest young geniuses of the elf clan. As soon as the two of them appeared, their powerful auras locked onto Lu Ming. "You must be Mu Yun, the one who defeated Hua Xing and Hua Tian?" asked the woman first. "That's me." Lu Ming nodded. "Very well, I heard that you are very arrogant and don't put us elves in your eyes. I originally planned to go back and meet you after I finished my cultivation, but I didn't expect you to deliver yourself to me. Very well, make your move, I'll give you 3 chances to make your move." This time, the one who spoke was a male elf. His voice was cold and haughty, and he looked as if he was the #1 elf in the world. Lu Ming was speechless. That guy had the strength of the third godly emperor layer, and on top of that, he was challenging a quasi-emperor. However, Lu Ming was not afraid of him. Lu Ming immediately made his move, activating the Great Divine Wind Technique. In this place, by using the Great Godly Wind Technique, one would be able to unleash its full power. The terrifying astral wind was drawn by the Great God Wind Technique and turned into a terrifying storm that swept towards the male elf. "Insignificant tricks, open for me!" The male elf coldly shouted, and a war bow appeared, and an arrow was shot. The arrow whistled and tore through the void. It directly tore through all the astral winds and created a passage. Unable to withstand a single blow, the male elf wanted to act cool, but before he could finish, he screamed in horror. This was because behind the astral winds, there was an even more terrifying gale that was sweeping towards him. Lu Ming didn't want to waste any more time with his opponent, so he immediately used the gale bead. His opponent was a genius of the third godly emperor layer. Even if he wasn't as strong as Hua Xing and Hua Tian, his cultivation level was too high. Lu Ming couldn't compete with him. After all, he was a genius. He had broken through to the third godly emperor layer at such a young age. Therefore, Lu Ming directly used his trump card. The male and female elves were directly swept into the terrifying gale. They constantly screamed and tried their best to resist. After a while, they were sent flying and vomited large mouthfuls of blood. Tragic, too tragic. His entire body was in tatters, and the clothes on his body had been cut into strips by the strong wind. They were even worse than those of a beggar. There were cuts all over his body. Compared to the handsome and beautiful image he had before, he was a world away from being 1,000,000 miles away. Of course, Lu Ming had been merciful, otherwise he would have died. "That's all you've got, and you still want to act cool? Piss off." said Lu Ming, waving his hand casually. The male and female elves were staring at Lu Ming. Their eyes were filled with flames of fury and murder. They were going to explode from anger. You're relying on external strength and treasures. What kind of strength is that? If you're strong enough, use your real strength to fight against me, shouted the male elf furiously. You have the strength of the third godly emperor layer and you want to challenge me, a quasi-emperor layer. If you're strong enough, let's fight at the same level. I can crush you with one finger, shouted Lu Ming icily. The male elf's face turned red, and he was speechless. Little boy, I've heard that you're going to participate in the Holy Seed exam. Wait and see. In the ancestral land, external strength is useless. You better not meet me in the ancestral land, shouted the male elf furiously. His eyes were ice cold. He had already received Ling Piao's message. She had told him to take good care of Lu Ming in the ancestral land. Chapter 3902. The male elf had received a message from Ling Piao before, telling him to take good care of Lu Ming in the ancestral land. Therefore, when he saw Lu Ming, he couldn't help but attack. After the male elf said that, he left with the female elf with his tail between his legs. You knew I was going to participate in the Holy Seed examination? So fast? Lu Ming's eyes flickered a few times. He felt that someone had deliberately leaked the news. Is it Ling Yue's cousin? Lu Ming whispered. He had also heard Ling Yue mention Ling Piao and her brother. He knew that these two siblings wanted Ling Yue to marry the genius of the Angel clan. It's a bit troublesome to meet such a person in the ancestral land. The great divine wind technique must break through. Lu Ming whispered. In the ancestral land of the elf clan, the strong wind pearl and the mysterious ice rod could not be used. Even Qiu Qiu could not be brought in. He could only rely on his own cultivation. Moreover, there was a strong suppressive effect inside. Facing a genius of the third layer of the Divine Emperor realm, Lu Ming was really not a match. He had to increase his strength as soon as possible. Continue to go deeper. Lu Ming continued to fly deeper, wanting to use the stronger astral winds to cultivate. After flying for hundreds of thousands of miles, the astral winds here had reached an extremely terrifying place. Even if Lu Ming used the Great Divine Wind technique, he still felt a huge pressure. It was very dangerous. At this point, it was almost impossible to see the geniuses of the elf clan cultivating. Lu Ming cultivated the Great Divine Wind technique here. As he circulated it, he drew out a violent astral wind. In the astral wind, he comprehended the mysteries of the Great Divine Wind technique. Time flew by. In the blink of an eye, 3 months had passed. I've finally broken through. A surprised voice came out from the endless astral wind. Then, the astral wind quickly wriggled and turned into all kinds of shapes. There were sabers, swords, tigers, hunts. Then, with a bang, the astral wind that had turned into all kinds of shapes collapsed, revealing a young figure inside. This young figure was naturally Lu Ming, who had been cultivating here for 3 months. After cultivating bitterly for 3 months, his great divine wind art had finally broken through and reached the small success stage. One had to know that before this, it was only at the entry stage. The greater divine wind technique had reached the minor completion realm, and its might had increased explosively. It was at least on par with a secret origin technique. Having severed 5 shackles was already quite terrifying. Among the younger generation, there were very, very few who could sever 5 shackles of an origin secret art. It's almost time. The Holy Seed assessment is about to begin. Lu Ming smiled and left, returning to his residence. Just as he returned, he saw that Ling Yue was already waiting here. Muyun, how's your cultivation going? Seeing Lu Ming, Ling Yue quickly asked. Not bad, I've made a breakthrough. Lu Ming smiled faintly. He made a breakthrough in just 3 months? Ling Yue was very surprised. At their level, 3 months' time was really too short. In order to achieve a breakthrough, be it in terms of God Force, Origin Secret Arts, or Cultivation, it was not something that could be achieved in just 3 months. The breakthrough that Lu Ming spoke of was naturally not a simple one. She didn't expect that Lu Ming would really be able to achieve a breakthrough in 3 months. Mu Yun, are you really confident? I'm not joking. It's really dangerous in the ancestral land. If you leave now, it's not too late. After thinking for a while, Ling Yue couldn't help but advise him. She wasn't being courteous. She was really worried about Lu Ming. Let's go. The Holy Seed assessment should be starting soon. Lu Ming smiled and took the lead to leave. Ling Yue had no choice but to follow. Then remember, after entering the ancestral land, it's best if you stay by my side. After all, I'm from the Elven royal family. On the way, Ling Yue's nagging voice could be heard. On a tree stump. Yes, at this moment, Lu Ming and the others were standing on a tree stump. This was an ancient tree stump that had been cut off, leaving behind a tree stump. However, this tree stump was too big. Its diameter was a terrifying 100,000 miles, comparable to a continent. It was said that this was the stump left behind by the Elven race's holy tree. The tree stump was as smooth as a mirror. When the sun shone on it, it could even reflect light. Legend had it that the holy tree was cut off by a sword during the last chaos. The Elven holy tree itself was an indestructible sacred object. An attack that could destroy a planet could not leave a single trace on the Elven holy tree. However, the Elven holy tree was cut off by a single sword strike. From this, it could be seen how terrifying the strength of the person who attacked was. On the mirror-like ground, there were already many young elves, both men and women, standing there. When Lu Ming and Ling Yue arrived, pairs of eyes pierced towards Lu Ming like sharp swords. Mu Yun. Is this Mu Yun? A mere quasi-emperor? Surprised or cold voices rang out. Among them, there were a few gazes that contained strong murderous intent. Lu Ming could easily sense the gazes that contained murderous intent. Following the gazes, Lu Ming saw a few familiar figures. The two brothers, Hua Xing and Hua Tian, looked at Lu Ming coldly. However, there was a trace of fear in their cold eyes. There was also a young man and a young woman. They were the two people who had been ruthlessly beaten up by Lu Ming with the Gale Pearl. Their gazes were filled with killing intent that was not concealed at all. Lu Ming was not afraid at all. He grinned. Bush. Suddenly, two figures appeared in the sky. They were two old elves, a man and a woman. Their hair was snow-white, but the aura they emitted was unfathomable. They were definitely above the divine emperor level. When these two people appeared, the scene immediately quieted down. Because these two people were very powerful elders of the Elven race. Greetings, elders. Everyone bowed. The elders of the Elven race had a very high status in the Elven race. This was because those who could sit in the position of elders had very powerful cultivation and strength. Even a princess like Ling Yue couldn't be presumptuous in front of an elder. I don't need to say more about the specific content of the Holy Seed examination. You should all know. As for the reward, it's still the same as before. Obtain a low-level Elven Tree Seed and 10 Elven Wood Cores. Obtain a mid-level Elven Tree Seed and 100 Elven Wood Cores. As for obtaining the Holy Seed, then, as long as the conditions are not excessive, we will definitely try our best to satisfy them. The white-haired male elder said. These words caused the eyes of many young geniuses to burst with a blazing light. This kind of reward was truly tempting. Especially the reward of obtaining the Holy Seed, it was simply too shocking. Some young geniuses, such as Hua Xing, who had feelings for Ling Yue, roared in their hearts that they must obtain the Holy Seed. This way, they could propose marriage to the Elven Patriarch and marry Ling Yue. He believed that the Elven Patriarch would not disagree with this condition. Chapter 3903. I won't say much else, I only have one thing to say. The Elven Tree Seed is extremely important to the Elven race, and it concerns the development of the Elven race. Therefore, you must do your best on this trip, for yourselves and for the Elven race. Do you understand? The female elder shouted loudly, her voice high. Understood. Many people roared, clenching their fists tightly. Very good, come with us now. The female elder said. After saying that, the two elders turned around and left. Everyone followed the two elders and left the Elven palace. Then they stepped into a wormhole. After a full day and night, they arrived at a remote planet. On this planet, there was a grand palace built. Lu Ming could vaguely feel that there were many terrifying auras around the palace. Obviously, this was the entrance to the elven ancestral land. There were many terrifying experts hidden in the dark, guarding this place. They walked into the hall and saw a huge door. It was a spatial door. Go in, you only have 3 months. In these 3 months, the evil spirits inside belong to the sleeping period, and only a few have woken up. After 3 months, when all the evil spirits have woken up, it will be very dangerous. You must come out within 3 months. Do you understand? The male elder warned. Everyone nodded. Then, they all charged into the spatial gate and disappeared into it. Lu Ming and Ling Yue also rushed towards the stone door and disappeared. In the next moment, Lu Ming discovered that he had appeared in the sky above a forest. The forest was lush and verdant, and it was a scene full of vitality. What a dense life essence! Lu Ming carefully sensed and discovered that the life essence in the air was extremely dense. With just a casual breath, he could inhale a large amount of life essence. Lu Ming saw that in the middle of the lush forest, there were many towering stone pagodas. They seemed very lofty. These stone towers are where the evil spirits are suppressed. The evil spirits reside in these stone towers. Of course, some of them will wander around, especially at night. Ling Yue appeared beside Lu Ming and introduced him. So that's how it is. Then how do we find the elven tree seed? Lu Ming asked. The nurturing process of the sprite tree is very strange. It is not nurtured out of thin air. Instead, it is nurtured from a certain plant. For example, in this forest, there are a large number of sycamore trees. Most of them are ordinary trees, but maybe one of them will mutate and become very strange. It can condense a special fruit, and that fruit will be the sprite seed. Of course, it's also because of the unique environment here that it's able to breed sprite seeds. Outside, the chances of ordinary plants growing sprite seeds are millions of times lower. Ling Yue introduced. Lu Ming was secretly amazed. This was completely different from what he had imagined. He originally thought that the sprite tree was naturally born from the environment of heaven and earth. He didn't expect that it was actually born from the mutation of ordinary plants. The Great Thousand Worlds was truly filled with all sorts of strange things. Let's start searching, Lu Ming said. Immediately, he spread out his spiritual sense and swept through the forest. Plants mutated and gave birth to sprite seeds. The energy fluctuations contained were definitely different and could be easily sensed. The first 3 levels can only nurture low-level sprite seeds. Moreover, every time the holy seed assessment is conducted, it will be the cleanest. It's more difficult to find sprite seeds. Let's go to the middle 3 levels to look for them. Ling Yue said. How do we get to the middle 3 levels? Lu Ming asked. There are a total of 9 entrances from the first level to the second level. They are scattered all over the first level. You can find them if you look for them. Ling Yue said. Lu Ming nodded. Immediately, the two of them searched for the entrance while searching for the sprite seeds. The range of each level was extremely large. The two of them flew for 2 hours, but they still hadn't found an entrance. Suddenly, Lu Ming's eyes lit up as he looked to the left. With a flash, he appeared 3,000 miles away, standing above a forest. Below, there was a sycamore tree. It was especially tall, 1/3 taller than the other sycamore trees. Furthermore, the life essence it emitted was especially exuberant. On the branch, there was a bulge that looked like a fruit. Sprite seed, I didn't expect that we would encounter a sprite seed so quickly. Looks like our luck is not bad. Ling Yue appeared beside Lu Ming and said in surprise. Is this the sprite seed? Lu Ming revealed a look of curiosity. He flew down and landed in front of the fruit. With a stroke of his finger, a beam of divine light flashed and the fruit was cut open. Immediately, a gush of majestic life essence permeated the air. In the middle of the fruit, there was a green seed. It was sparkling and translucent, like a piece of beautiful jade. Lu Ming reached out and grabbed it in his hands. What a dense life essence! Is this still a low-level sprite seed? Lu Ming looked at Ling Yue and asked. It is indeed a low-level sprite seed. Ling Yue nodded. Let's find a few more and split them evenly. Lu Ming said. No need, you can keep it. Your mission requires 12 high-level sprite seed. Even if it's a low-level sprite seed, when you gather 100 of them, you can exchange them for high-level sprite seed with others. When the time comes, there should be people exchanging them for me. After all, there's no loss and the rewards are the same. Ling Yue said, wholeheartedly wanting to help Lu Ming complete the mission. Lu Ming smiled and didn't say anything. He took out a jade box and put away the low-level sprite seed. However, their goal was not a low-level sprite seed, so even if they found one, they didn't continue to search carefully. Instead, they continued to search for the entrance. However, before the two of them could fly far, they suddenly felt a sense of danger. The two of them couldn't help but stop. The sky in front of them suddenly darkened, and a large amount of dark clouds flew over. No, it wasn't a dark cloud, but a strange creature. It was huge and extremely evil. It let out a roar, and a bloody light appeared in its eyes. It was filled with a baleful aura as it flew towards Lu Ming and Ling Yue. Evil spirit. A word immediately appeared in Lu Ming's mind. At the same time, he instinctively wanted to circulate his taboo energy and prepare to attack. However, when he circulated his taboo energy, he suddenly felt a powerful force surging towards him from the heavens and earth, wanting to suppress his power. He already knew that after entering the Elven ancestral land, his cultivation would be suppressed and he wouldn't be able to display his full strength. He didn't feel it before, but now that he was circulating his energy, he finally felt it. Open for me! All the cells in Lu Ming's body trembled as taboo energy burst out to resist the pressure.